Good evening. Call the special meeting of the Ames City Council for February 2nd to order. Welcome, council and staff. We're going to continue on with our budget presentations, and let's turn it over to Mr. Shanker and Mr. Abraham.
Thank you. Welcome to the second day of our presentation of our operating budget for the year 22-23. And Keith will start it off. We talk about all the programs and activities related to Parks and Recreation. He'll guide you through the pages too as we talk about it.
All right. Thank you, Steve. And good evening, Mayor and City Council. Before we get started, behind me, just wanted to introduce, we have Joshua Thompson, who's our Parks and Facility Superintendent, and then Courtney Court, who is our new Recreation Superintendent. She's been with us since the end of September. They do obviously a lot of things within the department, as well as all of our other full-time staff. And as we go through this, I'll probably throw out some names here and there. So real quick, anybody guess what park this is from?
Innis Grove.
Innis Grove, very good. Can you name the shelter?
Park?
No, it's Red Oak, the one right on Duff Avenue. But very good, Gloria. So with this, we're going to go through. Obviously, don't have a lot of numbers with things, but just kind of really highlight programs, activities, some of the accomplishments that we've had. So with Parks and Recreation Administration, just wanted to touch on, just with the pandemic, we're still feeling those effects, and with the participation, if we really look back to about 18-19 was the last pre-pandemic year that we had, full year. The number of registrations were down probably about 1,500 compared to 18-19 compared to what we're forecasting for 22-23. Revenue, same comparison, we're about $200,000 short from what we had in 18-19. And there's some other factors in there as well. But just the impact on part-time staff, you can see, from 2019 to 2020, this is the number of W-2s that we give out at the end of the year. So we really took a hit in 2020 with a lot of programs canceled. But then, we did make some recovery last year, and not sure if we'll get back up to that 450 number, but it just kind of gives you an idea of some things that we're still facing due to the pandemic. Fees and charges, just kind of gives you an idea. We always look at our fees and charges, look at what maybe competitors are doing, what people are willing to pay, what's happening, how much of demand is for some of our programs. So this year we have about 40% of our programs and activities are experiencing an increase. Ice Arena, 5%, Berman Aquatics Center, 3%, Homewood, with those passes, it kind of varies, and then 3% increase in rental rates. One of the things that we do with fees and charges is we do scholarships. And Tim, you had asked the question. I just did throw a couple of same slides in here to kind of give you an idea of what we have done with it. And one of the things with the pandemic, what we did is we used to do a brochure that we would mail out to everybody. And what we have been doing during that time, because there was so much uncertainty of whether or not we had facilities, we didn't have facilities, we're going to offer a program, not offer a program. So we have gone digital, and we're looking to continue, going digital with our promotion. But one of the things while we were doing that is we didn't do a very good job of promoting the scholarship. So that is something that with the upcoming digital program listings that we're doing, we're really trying to focus more on that. So that's with programs. If you look also with swim passes, you can kind of see obviously 2020.
Just for a second, could you go back to the slide on?
Sure.
So I'd actually been serving on city council for several years before I even knew we had this.
Yep.
And I think it speaks so well for you and your staff to have this. There are just so many kids that don't participate in our programming. I mean, it would just be awesome to see the number of scholarships be more fully utilized. And so I know you'd share with me on the email with the council that you have some plans to try to get the word out about these scholarships so they can be more fully utilized. But
Correct.
it'd be fun to sort of track this and see, and these aren't just for kids, these are also for adults. Is that correct?
No, our for our program scholarships right now, it is for basically sixth grade and down
Okay.
is what we do. Now with our swimming pass scholarships, that's for youth, adults, and families. So the swim passes in the summertime, we do have a broader range of who we offer scholarships to. Now in the email that I mentioned, or that I sent out, one of the things that we did talk about is that the Parks and Recreation Commission has asked staff to look at the scholarship program and come back with some recommendations. And some of the things that they talked about is, should we do scholarships for all ages, adults included, and things. So that's something that we will be looking at. And obviously we got to take a look at what impact it would have, on the budget, because right now we do just absorb most of this into our operational budget.
Well, it's a fairly nominal amount right now.
Yeah.
But I think it would really help with the utilization. And anyway, just really appreciate the leadership you've shown in that area.
Yeah. Thank you.
Keith, do you know anything about the distribution of those program passes? Like what they're being used for?
We do have that information. I'd be guessing if I tried to share it with you right now. It could be, I would say if I had to guess, swim lessons is probably one of the largest uses of our scholarships. But they do with other programs as well, whether it's gymnastics, dance, and so on. So, and then the next slide is with if we go on to page 166 with the Miracle League, and this is our instructional program. So we did start this last year. 55 participants over the 2 seasons that we had, and obviously just a great activity. We're continuing that. Courtney and then Ben Flaherty, who oversees our sport events for the youth and adults. They have been contacting some of the different groups, Kiwanis groups, and so on, and actually looking at maybe some sponsorships. Some of the groups are interested in sponsoring a team, which will help offset costs, and then also actually providing the coaching and maybe the buddies for those teams as well. So it is something that due to COVID, we didn't have the buddies for those first 2 seasons, but it is something that we're looking to do for this upcoming season. Ski clinic, we just did this, and you can see Mr. Garten up there in that left picture doing the instruction. We started out at Homewood, 42 participants, and then we moved out doors to Carr Park in East River Valley, where we had the trails groomed, and obviously the timing of that snowstorm was perfect, and we were able to get our staff, Shaw Crane, one of our maintenance workers, was out there at 6 a.m. grooming the trails, and everything was really good. So thank you to Tim and also Greg Welk for volunteering their time to do that. One of the things that Courtney is working on, she's been in contact with Julie Gould. We're doing some neighborhood activities this summer, and what we're really going to try to do is it'll be on the next slide, but really trying to get some activities. It might be getting neighborhood associations to form a kickball team, and maybe a youth team, maybe an adult team, and we do some things out at the Miracle League field, or there might be some other activities, but really trying to get the neighborhoods, trying to do something, get them involved, and really get some camaraderie and some interaction between the different neighborhood associations. So Courtney's working on that for the upcoming year. Bronwyn just asked a little bit earlier about the Trout Stocking out at Ada Hayden in the wintertime. The DNR is not going to do it this winter because our event has been so popular, and with the uncertainty of ice conditions and so on and safety concerns. So they're not going to do it, but but we are working with the DNR and Jax, and hopefully we're going to do an April stocking of trout out at Hayden, and then we'll do a fishing event, and we'll do maybe some other activities as well. So look forward to that. And still on the fishing theme, we've had conversations with the Hawkeye fly fishing group to do some fly fishing clinics and so on. So we're going to be looking at doing that, and hopefully we can offer some of those in the fall, spring, summer, and fall. So one note with Small Wonders, this program has been going on for over 30 years. And in that middle picture, Carla Droppel, she's been our director now for a number of years. And we also had Shireen Azizi, who was an assistant for a long time. Shireen, she retired at the beginning of this year. And Carla decided to stay around for one more year. We used to do this 5 mornings a week. This year, the interest was only 3 mornings a week. But Carla's going to retire at the end of this year, so we're going to discontinue the Small Wonders program. And that's reflective in some of the numbers, participation numbers and budget numbers. If we move on to page 168 with athletic, one of the things, we are doing as part of the CIP, I'm going to be taking 2 of the tennis courts at Emma McCarthy Lee and transforming them into 6 pickleball courts. But Pickleball Association in Ames, they have a lot of interest. And so we actually worked with them to do some leagues, and we had between the summer and the fall, we had 57 teams that participated in pickleball, which is great. And the association actually have had conversations with them, and they're willing to do fundraising, maybe doing some windscreen, up at these courts once they're built, and make some other things. They've even talked about raising funds to change the lighting from what we have to LED, which make it a lot better for the balls. So that's something. Stay tuned with that. One of the other things that we're doing this year is North River Valley Concessions. It has really been a struggle on a couple of fronts. Is to staff it. And 2, it's a lot of nights we're out there for 2.5, 3 hours, and we bring in $15 or $12, and people are just they bring their own drinks, they're bringing their own food, and really the only thing that we do well on for concessions is like when Iowa Games has their weekend tournaments. So we are still going to do those events. It's just we're not going to do the concessions for our adult softball leagues this year. So that's a change as well. If we go to Aquatics on page 170, obviously municipal pool, you're very well familiar with everything there. Splash pad, we did that is something that we're continuing to work through and getting the design, and hopefully we can get that happening here this summer as well. If you go to page 172 with the auditorium, community center, and the band shell, one of the things that started last year, Craig Kaufman, who is our auditorium, band shell, and community center manager. So he started this, and it was all virtual last year, virtually anywhere concert series. So now it's a virtually anywhere and here. So it's a combination. We're still going to stream it, but there also will be in-person opportunities for people. And you can see the first one is February 11th. You can purchase tickets, through Parks and Recreation. Information is on the bottom of that slide, but that's really a neat thing. And it's all local artists. And then what we do is we do some revenue sharing with those local artists. One of the other things, Play Pals, with over a year kind of break in the offering. This is done at the community center. So this past fall, we did start up Play Pals again. This is in the gym Monday through Friday mornings from 9 to 11. We put out the different equipment, and you can see parents and kids come and just have a great time. And so so that was something that we started back up again as well. The other thing I mentioned is, program relocation, and this ties in with the CIP. We do have in 22-23 over $100,000 to make some adjustments to the Gateway building. And what we're doing is this kind of gives you a shot. The first one is kind of looking north with a multi-purpose room. We use it for dance, TRX, and some other programs. And then the second one, kind of from the same shot, but looking to the south where we have gymnastics. We're looking to relocate these programs out to the Gateway office and then free up this space for office space and conference rooms in City Hall. If we go to page 174 with wellness, public wellness, again, we started with the pandemic with virtual classes, and then we started going to in-person, but some people just weren't quite ready to come back, and it's still the case. So we can take a look. 2021, we had 142 virtual registrations per session, and they're usually about 9-week sessions is what we do. As of this year so far, we're averaging about 67 registrations that are virtual. So although more people are coming back, again, some people just aren't comfortable. And again, we have had the conversation that with the pandemic, we may change the changes that we have made. We may continue with those until people say, no, we don't want to do it anymore. So we're really giving them options. The other thing that kind of came about is, outdoor classes. And, in 2020, we offered 12. 2021, during the kind of the spring, summer, fall, we offered 17 outdoor classes. Right now, we're looking at probably offering about 11 classes. Again, people wanted to be outside; they want to be able to spread out. So again, we'll continue doing that as long as people want it. A couple of classes, we've with that. The one on the left is yoga in the park. Has been going on for a long time, and that's again Nancy Shaw coordinates with other yoga instructors throughout the community, and everybody takes a Saturday, which works out really well. Something that we did start up this past year, that picture on the right is actually yoga out at Ryman Gardens, and that was very popular. So we're going to be continuing with that. We had 83 registrations in classes that we offered there, so we're going to continue that. And again, what a great setting to be able to do that. And again, it's a revenue sharing between Ryman Gardens and us.
Keith,
Yep.
I just want to tell you, I really appreciate having those kind of hybrid wellness courses, because it means I can fit in a yoga class by not having to drive down here and then drive somewhere else,
Right.
just being at home. So I'm a big fan of being able to do yoga at home and then go to a meeting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Great. Thank you for that comment. If we go to the ice arena, you'll see some things there, but ISU is still not offering some programs. They did an extended curling league in the fall, and then they're doing broom ball right now, but they are still not doing hockey. And because of that, they normally would be renting ice until 1, 2 a.m. in the morning. Now they're maybe renting ice until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So that has an impact. Now we've been able to, the ISU men's hockey team right now, they added an additional team. So they've been taking up more daytime hours. AMHA, Ames Minor Hockey Association, has been picking up some hours when it's available. But still, ice rentals, if some things are up, some things are down, and really the only increase that we show for revenue related to ice rentals is more so the increase in the 5% increase in rental rates right now. So that's something. One of the new programs, that we're doing is even though we have an Olympia resurfacer. People don't really know when you say, oh, we've got an Olympia. They have no idea what that means. But if you say, we got a Zamboni, everybody knows what a Zamboni is. So we're actually going to be offering Drive the Zamboni experience. And People can, you can see the different classes. They'll go through, get some training, and then they'll be able to take a lap with the Zamboni, get their picture and everything. And we already have people that are really excited, to be able to do that. So Taylor Bassett, our ice arena manager, came up with that idea, and we're going to be doing that.
Is there a council night with the Zamboni?
We can definitely do that if you would like.
I think it'd be fun.
So, with Homewood Golf Course, with some things there, Nate Peets, who's our recreation manager out there. So he's done the winter programming this year. He started, cribbage, euchre leagues. In fact, I've got cribbage league tonight when we get done here. It's been a lot of fun getting to know people. And he's going to continue to try to come up with other activities and programs, and it might be around the Masters. It might be that he does something fun, different activity, keeps the Masters on the TVs. People can come in, they can play, and just have some fun events. Clubhouse rentals, we're continuing to do that. As of right now, in the adjusted budget, we have budgeted for 100 hours of rentals, and right now we're at about 70. And Nate is getting a lot of phone calls for graduation parties, so we'll hopefully reach that 100. We move on to page 180 with park maintenance. A lot of different things happening, but one of the things that affect the budget. We have added a number of parks. We've added a number of different amenities, which has been awesome. And thank you for all of your support and funding for those projects. It's great. I know the public loves them, but we still have to be able to maintain it and get all the other work done. So we are adding an additional maintenance worker. And one of the things that we're doing is instead of the traditional Monday through Friday work schedule, we're going Wednesday through Sunday. And we have a vacancy right now with a maintenance worker, and that position, when we fill it, is going to be a Wednesday through Sunday as well. So we'll actually have 2 people on the weekends. Right now, we pay overtime for our maintenance workers to come in, do sanitation rounds, maybe check the pool, do cemetery burials, and so on. So we just felt that there was the way to go. And then also, one of the things that we're able to do is increase our service level at times, because there are times when we have maybe 3 reservations at Big Blue Stem Shelter out at Moore Memorial Park in a day. And we go and we service it in the morning, and then there's 3 reservations and so on. Now we'd be able to go back a couple of times during the day, maybe in between reservations, and clean it up, empty trash, and so on. And in those later groups, we'll have a better experience. One of the things Joshua has worked with homecoming group. I think this last year was the 2nd year that they did it. They took 1 year off, but over 1,000 volunteers come in on a Sunday afternoon, a couple hours at a time. And this past year, we had 4 different sites set up. Sometimes we will go in and we'll do some work ahead of time, maybe cutting down some trees and so on. And then the group comes in, and all they do is just haul it out to a location so we can throw the debris into a chipper and so on afterwards. But I think they're wanting to continue, and it's again, just look at 1,000 hours or 1,000 volunteers, 2 hours at a crack, 2,000 hours. That's a lot of person hours right there from a labor that saves us work. Total city perspective, car park, bathhouse. We're going to be taking that down this winter, and it's going to be a combination of Parks and Recreation staff and Public Works staff. We're going to work together to get that taken down. A lot of materials, the brick will be taken out to Public Works. They'll, run it through their kind of chipper grinder so they can use it for base material and other things. So it just doesn't go to the landfill. Any of the metal, we're hoping to take to Bell Salvage, and we're really trying to reduce as much as we can. We even talked about the rafters, the wood, putting it out in the parking lot, let people know that, hey, if you want to, use the material, come and grab it and use it for different projects. So again, it doesn't wind up in the landfill. So that's something that we're doing. One of the other projects that was kind of a total city perspective, the water plant, with their woods out there around the water plant, a lot of undergrowth in the woods, and said, hey, we really need to do something. So Forester and our staff went out and burned that for them, which was a good thing. So as far as again pruning schedule with the Forester, he's got all of our parks on a 5-year schedule. You'll see the same thing in the right of way. But those are just the parks that we've got coming up in 21, 22, and then 22, 23. And then as far as some of the accomplishments with all of that, you can see just from July 1st of this year through the end of January, 25 risk trees removed, 866 trees inspected and pruned, 42 trees planted. And Paul did get, or Paul Tauke, our city forester, did get $5,000 in some grants and on-site funding to help with tree planting. Here you go. Just the next is this just a picture kind of before and after. These are things that we're constantly dealing with, and we're trying to take care of these things ahead of time. So this kind of stuff doesn't happen, but we don't always know if a tree is at risk of falling or coming over like this one. But we continue to go along the trails and really try to look between 50, 60 feet of the trail. If there are trees in question, we will take those down. And then we did do a prairie burn at Ada Hayden, and we continue to do that. Just a lot of benefits if we can get that accomplished. So if we go to page 198, we couldn't get this to work. And Joshua and I tried. We couldn't get it to work, but now it works. So, but it just kind of gives you an idea of what they do and what that looks like. So with the cemetery, we did add 2 columbariums, moved one of the other, or the only other columbarium, and then doing it in that grassy area across from the office, which City Council approved, master plan for that. We're going to be putting up a pavilion later this year and putting some sidewalks in, and then that whole area will be finished, and then we'll do some landscaping as well. One of the things, as soon as we got those columbariums in, some of those niches, I think we sold like 14 niches, right away, because people were just waiting for them to get in, because the other columbarium was full. As far as the right of way, if you go to page 138, again, we do have the city broken up into different zones, and again, we try to do every zone once every 5 years. If again, we talked about risk trees. If you look at the next slide, there's one on Ridgewood. And again, these are things when we're out pruning or just driving around, and it's not just always the city forester identifying these things. It could be any of our staff. There are times where I call up Paul or Joshua or anybody else and just says, hey, you might want to go check out a tree over here about this address, because I don't know if it's looking too healthy or it looks like it might be cracked. And he goes out and takes a look, and then a lot of times if they're at risk, we obviously take them down so there's no injury or potential injury to people. From the right of way, you can see we're talking risk trees. Again, since July 1st, 142 trees came down, 2,500 inspected. We've planted over 160. And then Paul did get $10,000 in grants and outside funding to help with things in the right of way. The next picture just shows some of the groups that have helped in the different plantings. Again, we're always very appreciative of the Ames Foundation, the partnership we have with them to make sure that we continue to plant trees. As far as EAB, year 9 is 22-23, so we're in the middle of year 8 right now. But this just gives you an idea at the end of year 9, in the parks, we will have removed all of the emerald, the ash trees, due to the emerald ash borer. Cemetery will have removed all of those. And then with the right of way, we'll have only 392 trees left. And if you kind of take a look at that on the next slide, just to kind of give you a comparison, between the plan and what we have actually done. So the plan for parks 217, we'll have them all done, so actually plus 346. Cemeteries were not actually in the original plan. They were not inventoried. And then we did determine that there were 50 ash trees out there. We'll have all those down. So according to the plan, we've already removed 585 more. And some of that was done because smaller trees. We really went after it with staff and so on. So that kind of gives you an overview of everything that we're doing, we have done, we are doing.
Yep. On the right-of-way trees, you took down 1,400. How many have you replaced? Do you know?
Joshua, you know how many in?
So every ash tree in the right of way is replaced 1 for 1. And we've supplemented that with Ames Foundation, tree plantings and other things. So we're well over that number as far as tree plantings in the right of way.
Thank you. So go to that beautiful picture. Yeah, the next slide. Ada Hayden, or not Ada Hayden, Furman Aquatic Center.
When that happens.
Yeah. So any questions about anything? Kind of flew through those pretty quickly.
As far as the tree planting goes, we did get one bit of feedback from a constituent who wanted us to just do more of that.
Yep.
And I guess what's your take? How much of that is limited by funding, and how much is limited by not things other than funding? So like labor and time.
Yeah. So actually, our forester put together a draft, and I'm hoping to get that to you for next Tuesday's meeting.
Oh, cool.
With some of the information that the resident had asked about. So it is a combination. Sometimes, when we take a tree out, we may not put it back in the same place, or because we find that it wasn't a good place for a tree originally. Sometimes, the soil just isn't conducive to doing it. So it is a combination of a lot of things to say that it's more funding versus more labor versus, whatever. Hopefully we'll address all of that in this memo. So,
Yeah.
So I don't have all the information right now.
I forgot we asked for that memo. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. So we'll get that to you.
I have 2 questions, Keith.
Yep.
Given the questions that Bronwyn was asking about the trees, when we do take out trees in the right of way,
Yep.
do we notify the homeowner if that tree has, if the roots have made the sidewalk bulge so that they can repair the sidewalk?
Yes. Yeah. So if there are issues like that, and sometimes that's a reason, that we take a tree out. Sometimes if the sidewalk is being replaced or it is buckling or whatever, sometimes you can cut the roots, but it's not always ideal for that tree. So we do, and Paul does a really, really good job of working with the homeowners on all of these things. And sometimes it's also working with Public Works in regards to the sidewalk, because in some places, depending on if the tree has caused it and so on, sometimes we will actually replace the sidewalk and not put that burden on the homeowner. It just depends on the situation. But even from a planting perspective, it used to be, we just would go out and say, we're planting trees here in the right of way. If you don't like it, tough. But right now, what we do is Paul goes out and he sends a letter to everybody, every address that we're going to plant the tree. And then in that letter, it says, we're looking to plant a tree in the right of way in front of your house. If you want the tree, if you're good with it, let us know that. And then if you have a specific species that you want, let us know that too, and we'll work with you as much as possible. And then some people just don't want a tree in front of their house. So we say, okay, we'll find another location, for it. So we really do try to work with the property owners a lot. And like I said, Paul does a tremendous job with that.
So the second question may be a little bit random, but it follows up on some discussion we had the other night. Are the paths and roads in the cemetery considered part of our trail system?
Well, that's a good question, and I can't recall if we ever had that discussion, because on 9th and 11th, that the main areas, I think, in Joshua, aren't those actually part of the street?
Correct.
9th and 11th, the rest of we do have people that come and walk, and we do have people that will ride their bikes, and occasionally we have people use them as training grounds, and we have to go out and talk to them and say, hey, that's not the purpose of this area. So we do we have not had a lot of conversation about whether they're roads or trails, but I don't think we consider them part of the trail system. But people do use them for that purpose. Is there a specific concern or?
No, it's just that we were discussing the other night, just chatting over dinner, whether we like to go walking in cemeteries.
Yeah,
And some of us like to look at tombstones and enjoy an evening stroll when you don't have to worry about traffic.
right.
And so it just came up, and I had no idea whether we actually considered any part of the cemetery part of the trail system in town.
Yeah.
Because I know people go there.
Yeah, people go there, but I really, when we talk about trails, we don't include those into that conversation. But if people want to walk out there, yeah, definitely do it.
Keith, just a couple of follow-ups. I wanted to give some feedback. I think the erosion control efforts at the Homewood Golf Course affecting the trail was an extensive project. And I think my take on this, looks like it did a great job. But that was an enormous effort to maintain that, to basically restructure that hill.
Yep, and we have to give credit, because that project was led by Public Works. So again, it was a joint effort, with him, and then obviously there were some impacts that we needed to fix on the golf course itself, but it was a joint project. So yeah, and it has worked really well, and hopefully it holds up.
I mean, if there was a little bit of rain, the trail would wash out. So that was a huge improvement. I do have one question. I mean, maybe this is a better question for another time, but where is the Parks and Rec Board in terms of seeing us develop the East River Valley Trail further north?
We have not had that conversation, with them. We're limited, going north because there are private properties, up there. Is that what you're?
Well, the council authorized the use of eminent domain for trail expansion. We didn't specify the particular park, but I was curious if this was something that was still in the works.
Yeah. We and we just actually had a conversation, Josh, when I had a conversation with Mark Ganson in Public Works. So looking at the possibility of doing that, I think we'll have to bring that back to council and just give you more information on that. So we've not had the conversation with the commission.
Do you need anything further from us? I mean, I think that's an outstanding referral, I think. So if you think it would be helpful for us to renew that referral, we can do that.
Yeah, I think we just need to bring you more information, because there are some components of that.
Sure.
Of what we could do and what we can't do, even with eminent domain. So I think we just need to bring that back at another time.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Great presentation.
You have a timeline in mind, Tim,
For
seeing something from,
I mean, there's no urgency to any of this.
so within the next year.
I mean, maybe 6 months. I mean, we've got this amazing trail. I think it's for the good of the community to see that trail expand and,
Yeah, yeah, and there are, yeah, so I think, and help me out, Joshua, did you get from our conversation with Mark that it'd probably be, within maybe a couple of months that we'd want to bring something back?
Yeah, we were gonna get some things together and actually bring it to council within the next couple of months. That was the discussion we had yesterday.
Yeah.
But there's some pretty major issues as far as, limiting us to going north, but we are working on a plan to go a different direction, to get people north.
okay, great.
Yep,
That'd be great,
so
thanks.
We can bring that to you.
All right. Any other questions for Keith? All right. Thank you all for coming.
All right,
Appreciate the report.
thank you very much. Have a great night.
Good job.
Oh, you're Don.
Thank you, sir.
Very artistic.
Where are we? 64.
Don, is the movie first?
Yeah, 1 second, let me introduce it.
Okay.
Jump right in, Steve. You wanna do it?
Your jump at Toma page.
All right, good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Donald Kahn, Director of Electric Services. I'll be starting on page 64. I do have a question first of all, let me introduce one of my staff that's here tonight, Curtis Spence. He's the power plant manager. And it's interesting that Keith mentioned all of the activities that are going on with the park system. Curtis is actually here with his daughter who's going to gymnastics at 6:30.
Yeah. there you go.
So
She's
she,
gonna love me for that now.
sorry. But yeah, so she's going down to gymnastics here in about a half hour. So works out well. I have a quick question for the council. How many people have been through the power plant in the last year? Well, yeah.
In the last year.
So maybe before I begin, if you'll permit me, I'm going to run a short video. Curtis doesn't even know I'm doing this. So
Is he in it?
I want to tell you a little bit about the power plant because it's an important piece of the electric services. Please, Dwayne.
Is the pink bunny in it?
Hello, I'm Curtis Spence, Power Plant Manager. You may remember me from videos such as City of Ames Power Minute. Today we're going to be talking about some cleaning work. But anyway, today I want to introduce you to the power plant.
The Ames Power Plant originated in 1896, providing 150 kilowatts of electricity for the city, but only between the hours of 5 p.m. and midnight. The power plant now provides electricity continuously through natural gas-fired units 7 and 8, capable of together producing 110 megawatts of power. Since 1975, the power plant has been burning refuse-derived fuel, or RDF, which prevents about 70% of Story County's waste from going into landfills. The power plant also owns and operates 2 combustion turbine peaking units that generate a total additional 45 megawatts. The peaking units are located about 1 mile east of the plant.
So the main thing we do at the power plant is we convert energy into electricity. So the energy starts from a fuel source, and that fuel source is natural gas or RDF here at this power plant. We transfer the energy from that RDF or natural gas into heat, and we do that with the boiler. So we take that heat and we store it by using steam and water in the boiler, and then we take that steam and we push it to the turbine. The turbine takes the energy stored as heat and the steam and converts it into mechanical energy. And then from the turbine and that mechanical energy, we go to the generator, and that generator transfers it from the mechanical energy into electricity. All that seems a very simple way of describing what we do, but it's pretty complex. I'll start by showing you where the fuel comes from. Usually I bring you up to the 9th level in person, so I'll just do that through this video. So come on, we'll go up, climb the stairs together.
There are just over 200 steps from the basement to the top of the plant.
So we're up on the 9th level and a little windy today. But over here, if you can see out over my left, is resource recovery plant. That's where they process all the MSW, shred it, get the RDF ready to go for us. They send it underground to this RDF bin, where then we store it until we're ready to take it into our boiler. So the RDF bin, what looks like a piece of rusty cheese, can hold 200 tons of RDF. Each side holds 100 tons, and we process out of there with an auger and different conveyance to bring it over to the power plant. So I wanted to give you an understanding of the plant layout. This is Unit 5. This is Unit 6. This is Unit 7. And this is Unit 8. Unit 5 and 6 have been decommissioned since the 1980s, so we basically use those as storage areas, but they look pretty good when you walk in. And then Unit 7 and Unit 8 are active units. Unit 7 can produce, nameplate is 33 megawatts, and we'll be able to burn about 85 tons of RDF per day. And then Unit 8 nameplate can produce about 65 megawatts and burn about 120 tons of RDF per day. All right, one fun fact about the power plant of the many thousands that we have is Unit 8 boiler is capable of producing 620,000 pounds per hour of steam at 950 degrees Fahrenheit at 1,250 pounds per square inch. So that pipe that says Unit 8 main steam is transferring all of that energy down to the turbine.
We operate 24 hours a day, every day of the year. We have 39 employees. This includes 20 shift operators who work different shifts, day, night, weekends. We have 8 maintenance mechanics, 5 instrument control technicians, 1 electrician, 1 custodian, 1 clerk, 2 superintendents, and a plant manager. We have 132 fire extinguishers. We have not 1, but 2 overhead cranes capable of lifting 100,000 pounds each. Even though it is a fashion statement, we wear helmets not only for style, but also for safety. Other protective equipment we wear include protective eyewear, hard-toe shoes, ear protection, and long sleeves and pants. A majority of the year, we have contractors on site helping maintain the equipment. This can range from 1 to 2 contractors to over 100 on site each day. These contracted jobs include anything from digging trenches, hanging large water balloons, replacing boiler tubes, to building cooling towers. The operators at the power plant are the people who will help you when you are experiencing power outage. If you are ever experiencing power outage, just call 515-239-5240 and we will energetically respond. I hope you've enjoyed this tour of our power plant, and we will see you next time you visit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well
done.
Curtis was afraid that I embarrassed his daughter, I think. Now his daughter has something over her dad. So he can go home being embarrassed. All right, thank you. Go ahead and start the slides, Lane. So again, we're starting on page, that says 62, interesting. All right. Let's begin, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, let's start on page 66, that's even better. So with electric services, I'll briefly walk through each of the various departments that we have. The first one that we're looking at is electric administration. That's basically myself, Jackie's over there, Dwayne, Brian Trower, and it'd be people like our, what would have been Kaylee, so our energy services coordinator, things like that. In electric admin right now, it's up a little bit from last year. And really the big thing that drove it up this year is we started buying those new radios. So that was put into our budget this year. That was a little over, I think about $30,000. Also membership dues, as you can imagine, have gone up in several of the organizations that we are in. SunSmart Solar, the solar farm that's operating down by the airport, has been operating now for just over a year, and it's pretty much at the levels that we expected. We think if we can get the panels cleaned, we can actually get probably a slightly better output. We again ran a virtual eco fair this last year. We're looking at doing eco chats. In fact, we had a meeting on that yesterday where we're starting to work with the library and bringing in each month different topics that we can talk through. And it's been extremely beneficial both for those attending the library and for the individual groups speaking. And we've got that carried throughout the city, different departments that are doing that. We also have a little bit of money in there this year. Our building for electric admin was built in the early 80s. So we are looking into renovating and adding a little bit more office space in the building in the coming year. Next slide, please. A couple of different things. When we compare ourselves from a utility to our neighbors, there are 3 other electric utilities that serve customers in Ames. Our residential rates are typically running at about 24% lower on average than the other 3 utilities. Commercial is about 14%, and industrial is pretty much about the same. Typically, the other utilities tend to offer lower rates to industrial customers and higher rates to residential. It's just by the design and makeup of those utilities. This last year, we hit a peak on August 24th. It was 128.7 megawatts. That's still below a previous peak of 130.7. That goes way back to 2012 when we hit that peak. And my boss always tells me no new peaks, and I think it's in my performance review. So we're still there right now. Next slide, please. Kind of the unique piece of this on page 28, we talk about a subset of electric admin, which is our demand side management program. We talked a little bit about this last year. Some of this is still being developed, but the SunSmart is our solar farm. This year we'll be planting pollinators, which will attract bees and things like that. So we really want to bring those type of vegetation into that area and not just have weeds growing or rock or anything like that. We're also working with a individual rather than having to mow it. We're working to bring sheep in to mow it, if you will. And there'll be other native vegetation in the area.
You have to train those sheep to push the lawnmower.
Well, we actually looked at goats, but we find that goats tend to climb on solar panels. So we think sheep are going to be a much better
Not a
option.
good idea.
Those darn goats.
Yeah, we've been reviewing our rebate programs and things like that, and you'll see that when you look at the costs within this program, we did add some more money into the rebate program, and we're hoping that we can continue to encourage our customers to buy more efficient equipment. We've, I'll say, completed the geothermal pilot. This is out at the Baker subdivision, so we've gotten all the wells in. We're working closely with Vanessa and her group. We're really looking forward to that first house getting built so that we can tie into a geothermal system as opposed to a traditional furnace. And this will bring low cost, very environmentally friendly heating and cooling for affordable housing, which typically that type of heating and cooling is put in by those that have $20,000, $30,000 that they can put forward in a project like this. So our design is rather unique, and we want to see it start and go off to a good start. Our electric vehicle chargers, since we've met last time, we've got more installed this summer. Many of you were out at our DC fast charger that's now in service. We're installing in this next month the 4th level 2 charger in the city. And last year, and we're going to do it again this year, we had electric vehicle displays at the farmers market in the summer. Give people that that ability to go and touch and feel, and in some cases, drive various brands of electric vehicles. We think that's been extremely beneficial. We're seeing a rather large increase in the number of electric vehicles being driven in Ames. Our primetime power program, this is where we control air conditioners. This is an older system, and this is something when I talked on CIP, where we're looking at more of an advanced metering system that will come in to help replace a program that's been extremely beneficial in keeping our peak low. And this program's almost run its course. I mean, we're talking Windows 7 operating systems for those who can think back that far and when you had a Windows 7 operating. And then this last year, we had a solar crate that was parked out in front of the cooling towers. That was in cooperation with Iowa State, that I believe is now set up down in the Des Moines area. And IEDA and others are looking at that as things that could be developed and brought in both for the Iowa National Guard and then to serve as remote, they call it microgrids, so you can create a little power center during extended outages and things like that. Next slide, please. Moving on to Curtis's area, everybody recognizes that as Unit 8. That's the one Curtis was standing next to.
Before we move to that one, Don,
Yes, sir.
could you take us back to page 69?
Sure.
Just a couple of data points I think are valuable to note. We have a lot of attention right now on our climate efforts, and I think it's valuable to note the percentage right now, if I'm reading this correctly, we're getting about 15% of our energy is coming from renewable sources. Could you talk about that just for a bit?
Yes, I can. And that's a little misleading when we look at that. So when we run our generation, we have several different types of generation. First off, we've got our natural gas plants. We run those to burn refuse-derived fuel. So when they burn refuse-derived fuel, it's a combination of natural gas and that. So that produces probably about 40% of our energy. We have a wind farm that we have under contract. We started that in 2009. I know the total, so I'm trying to think how to relate that, because some of the energy that we get out of the power plant is based on refuse-derived fuel, which we also consider to be a green, renewable resource, if you will. The third piece then is we have our solar farm. So if you look at the refuse-derived fuel portion of that, plus our wind, plus that solar farm, that adds up to, and it varies month to month, and it's typically, we print that in the city side, it's 14 to 18%, depending upon how windy it is in a given month. The remaining part of our energy we purchase from MISO. Now, MISO is the regional grid, and we are buying some of that energy is typically green, but that's also claimed by the utility that installed that energy. So it gets to be a little bit unique when you start looking at what that means. If you look at overall carbon footprint, including that, we're at about, we just sent some information out on that today. I think we're at about 35 to 40% right now, what we would consider green renewable energy.
That's a super helpful explanation. And the other thing on that page, so the solar energy that we buy from people who have solar panels on their roof, is that reflected here somewhere?
Yes.
The retail
So
solar?
it says retail solar energy purchased by Ames in megawatt hours. So right now, those are the 436, 485, and then we're estimating at 514. So that's the excess energy produced by homeowners and businesses that have installed solar on their homes.
Okay. So one of the things that if we were interested in trying to leverage that to increase the amount of capacity for residential solar, is that something that URAB would be working on, or is that something that you would ask for council to give direction if we're interested in that?
It's one thing that URAB is looking at. In fact, we are in the process of hiring a consultant to look at 5 sites within Ames where we can dramatically increase the amount of solar. So when we look at it, do we focus on putting a little bit of solar on 100 homes, or do we look at putting a bunch of solar on one spot. And we're favoring that because the price difference,
Sure.
it's much more, the economies of scale, it's much better to build 10 megawatts or rather than 10 kilowatts, if you will. So it's a factor of 1,000. So our focus right now has been to look more at larger systems. There is some talk about maybe increasing some of our rebate programs, but then decreasing some of the buyback rates and trying to balance that out to help more, to make it more affordable to put it in, but then try to right size solar so that you're not getting a different swing, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, so this is super helpful, and I apologize, maybe I missed this. I wasn't aware of that we were looking at these sites for some larger opportunities, so that's super encouraging. And then last question on this topic. LED lighting is, at this point, it's not super cost effective to replace your lighting with LED light. The payback period is a little bit longer, typically 6 years. Have we looked at some kind of incentive program, some kind of subsidy to help encourage businesses and homeowners to move towards LED lighting?
Actually, the reverse. We've had rebates for years. Now LED lighting is the standard. So we've actually cut back on rebates in the last couple of years because when you go to the store, that's basically the light bulb you're going to buy. So UREB, and I believe we sat down with council a year ago when we reviewed our rebate programs and said, it's sort of silly if Steve goes out to buy a LED light and then to give him a rebate when he would have bought the light. It was we thought it was a misuse of what a rebate is intending to do, where you have two choices. So if I could choose this or this, I'm going to give a rebate on the one that's more efficient because it's more costly. There wasn't that cost difference anymore. So we've actually kind of removed rebates, but we could look at that again. But at this point, I think LED is the standard.
Yeah, I apologize, and maybe I shouldn't have focused on the residential. On the business side, we just did this for our building, and the city, Mary Rankin and her crew figured about a 6-year repayment period. And so there are situations where I wonder if we put in a little bit of skin in the game, it might be an incentive for other businesses to shift towards an LED. I don't mean to take up time. I was just curious if that was something that, if we were interested in that as a council, we could come back to you and ask for more information on that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. There was one other thing I was going to say, something about solar. Oh, the other thing I wanted to point out about solar as we're looking at these sites is it's rather interesting. Where we want to put solar is where we don't want to use for agriculture, or that would be more beneficial. And that seems to be one of the challenges. So we're looking for land that doesn't have agricultural benefits and things like that. So we're looking at landfills and maybe floodway fringes and things like that. So it is a little bit challenging trying to find enough land of the poorest quality to put solar on. So I wanted to mention that.
In some places you see it above parking lots. So like to shade cars and get, it's the parking lot is empty space anyway.
Yep. Parking lots is an excellent idea. Steve's mentioning roofs.
Depends where, from Missouri, it's roofs.
Okay. I'm from Minnesota, so it's roofs. Okay. But you're right. One of the things when we talk to developers, and like I said, the consultant is looking at this type of stuff, is you put a lot of infrastructure when you do parking lots where you've got all of those posts that can't be hit by cars and stuff. When you stick it in the ground, typically they're just pounding those posts right into the ground. You have to worry about concrete, but we will be looking at those. So back to power plant. So power plant's budget, recommended budget for 22-23. This is again, operation and maintenance is about 14 million. This is up a little bit from 21-22. The good news, or some of the things I want to cover, our unit 8 is up and running. That's our bigger unit. That's the unit that was literally designed and put in to build or to burn RDF back in the 80s. So that's back up and running, and we're feeling very good about that. What's driving that slight increase is contractual services, basically due to some preventive maintenance that we're trying to do within the power plant to maintain and make sure that we're doing proactive maintenance and not reactive. As of today, nothing happened this afternoon, right, Curtis? Correct. Nothing happened. As of today, 349 days without a lost time accident. For an industry, that is phenomenal. The previous record was 1,400? Yeah. Around 1,400 days. So Curtis and everybody in the plant want to be safe. Everybody wants to go home at night with all their fingers and toes. We've had some, through COVID, we've had some experiencing high turnover in our staffing. Brought in a lot of maintenance, auxiliary operators, even our superintendents are fairly new in their jobs, but they're all excited, and we're continuing to hire. We're also involved with Public Works, or with resource recovery through Public Works, on a waste to energy study. It's currently about 80% complete. We're trying to finalize it, and then we're going to sit down with Dwayne, Steve, Brian, Phillips, and others, go through it before we have them present to council. Next slide.
Don, can I ask something about production? In the video, we saw units 5 and 6, which are dormant. So are those units staying there for any reason other than the fact that it might be more expensive to remove them than to just leave them?
Excellent question. Thank you. So in answer to your question, just to remove them, yes, you'd spend $1 million just to take them out. Well, 750. It's actually in my CIP to take some of it out because there's a boiler behind those turbines. Part of the waste to energy study is looking at taking out the boiler for 5 and or 6 and trying to reuse turbine 5 and 6, because when you burn garbage alone, RDF alone, you're not going to need that big turbine, so it'll only power 5 or 6. They happen to be roughly the right size. Now, we haven't looked inside of those things for 20 years, 25 years. So we're hopeful that they make sense and they keep the project low cost when we look at a waste to energy change or facility. So that's why. And Curtis likes to walk in and see them every day. On fuel and
Historic.
yeah, they are historic. Fuel and purchase power, this is one of our largest departments in terms of expenditures. So for 22-23, a little over $32 million. This is actually down slightly from the year before. Something that is really, everybody hears about how natural gas prices are going up. For once, God smiled on us, and natural gas costs for us are under contract. We locked in gas several years ago. Those prices are good through the end of December 2023. So we've got 2 years of it. And right now, based on today's gas prices, they're roughly half of what people are paying for their heating. This is great from a standpoint of burning refuse-derived fuel. It's great in stabilizing the energy prices for our customers. And we're very, very glad that it's like that. Our purchase powers, when we buy power that we're not generating on the open market, have remained relatively flat. So we're doing well there. An interesting thing is, and I mentioned before, we don't want to hit a new peak. So we're not hitting a new peak, which is that 1 hour in the year when everybody's got their air conditioners on. We don't want to do that, but our energy sales themselves are going up, and it actually has rebounded to the highest point it's ever been, even pre-COVID. So I just got the numbers today. So in the last 12 months, we sold 620 gigawatt hours. So on your electric bill, you know what a kilowatt hour is. In our world, we deal with megawatt hours, which is 1,000 kilowatt hours. A gigawatt hour is 1,000 megawatts. So it's 1,000 of your kilowatts, which is very good. The previous number was 620. And part of it's due to this cooler weather. So energy sales mean that we're utilizing our system better without hitting a new peak, which would drive another generator. So We're kind of pleased with that number. We see this number with electric vehicle charging and conversions to heat pumps and stuff like this. This number could start going up a little bit more in the years to come. As long as we can stay away from new peaks, that's actually a good thing. Unit 8, I mentioned before, is back. It'll be generating more. Before we were using 7, which is a smaller unit, which means then we'll be purchasing less power from the open market. Next slide.
Don, just out of curiosity, I see that your fuel purchased is almost $16 million, and you said that right now we're half of what the market's going. So
Yes, sir.
would that be accurate to say there'd be another $16 million for this coming fiscal year if the rates stay where they're at right now for the natural gas rates? If we had to pay market versus your contract rate, we would go up another $16 million in fuel purchase. Is that correct?
Roughly. So of that 16 million, 10 million, a little over 10 million is the gas itself.
Okay.
And then we pay about 5 million for
refuse
transport. So the transport would stay the same. That's the use of the pipeline on Northern Natural. And that's the pipeline basically from Story City to get it to the power plant. But I would say 10 million would be easily 20 million. So you would see our fuel cost for natural gas to go up by $10 million.
So out of curiosity, the adeptness that you demonstrated or your staff did by locking this in, would that save our ratepayers? Because obviously you probably have to charge more for electricity because of the increase in the fuel. Is that correct?
Yep. So a rule of thumb that I have used, Dwayne taught me this one time, is for every $500,000, that's 1% on your energy bill. So at $10 million, that would be a 20% rate increase roughly for that year.
So that would be, what's the rate? 13 cents? Is that right?
Oh, sir. No. You must be
15,
on Alliance,
20?
sir.
I am on Alliant. I keep wanting you to come out and
City rates right now are averaging. So here's the beauty of it. So our rates are roughly 11 cents and 9.5 cents, but we're doing a decent enough job that our rates actually have a negative fuel cost adjustment, which is another 0.6 cents. So we're running at about 10.2 cents per kilowatt hour for residential customers. For our large commercial and residential, it's a little below 6 cents a kilowatt hour.
Point being, though, is that people would see a 20% increase potentially on their bill, regardless of what you're going for KWH. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And it says you're in year 7 of an 8-year contract for that natural gas. When that contract is up, do you expect, I assume prices won't have come down by then. Do you expect a jump then?
We're hopeful that the prices will get back down into roughly where we're at now. The other thing we're looking at, and this is the beauty of that waste to energy study, is the intent of the waste to energy study is to move away from natural gas. This helps us both on the climate action plan, and it takes this variable out of our future. So as we finish the waste energy plan and bring it before you, that will be hopefully one of the selling points, that we move away from natural gas, which protects us and reduces greenhouse gases.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, on to electric distribution. Everything in electric, we never follow everybody's rules. So in electric distribution, we actually broken that into 2 subcategories: operation and maintenance, and we'll talk about extensions and improvements. In the operations and maintenance side, page 74, total expenditures are about 3.6 million. This is up just about 1% from 21-22. Couple of big things to mention there. The biggest ticket item in operation and maintenance happens to be tree trimming. You would think that the derecho would have done that for us, but no, it took out the wrong trees. So we're still out there each and every year, and we go around and we have a 5-year plan touching all of the trees that are in our right-of-way space from an electric standpoint. The other thing that's on here, which is really kind of cool, and Susan's been very helpful in kicking this off, but we have a text messaging system. So many people are saying, my power's out, my phone doesn't work, but if you have your cell phone, you can actually text. And if you're set up there, if customer service knows your cell phone number, all you have to do is type out on your cell phone. It'll go, Tim Garten. Yep, I recognize the phone number. It means this house. Is that correct? And it'll text you back and say, thank you. We got the information that there's an outage at your house. And then that's even faster than Facebook or Twitter or anything else. And then we can start working on your outage even better. So don't have to do it now, but type in Ames into your cell phone if you're a City of Ames electric customer. And then that'll tell you if we have your number associated with your account. More information's coming out through Susan and Cityside and things like that. But
Just type in Ames.
Ames, AMES.
Okay.
All right. So try that at break and see if I'm right. Okay. On the other side of electric distribution is extensions and improvement, page 74. This one is down a little bit. This is about 2 point, and there's an extra comma in there. Always
And an extra 2.
it's just 2 million, not 2.2.5 million. Some of the things we're working on, and I think this came up at the CIP. I think the mayor was asking if we're adding any capacity and stuff to the system. Mortensen Road substation is one of those places where we are adding capacity and reliability. We're going to be reconfiguring Grand and South Duff or South 16th for Duff and South 16th for the reconfiguration as a result of Grand. So we're going to be putting in new poles there and cleaning up that. So if you've ever driven through there and looked at the transmission lines like I do, we're going to fix that. Spending time at Baker Subdivision, bringing power out there. We're working on street lights for Grand and South Fifth. And we're doing a lot of focusing on system maintenance on the distribution side. Next page, please. Almost done. I think there's 2 slides left. Okay, on the tech services side, page 76, these are our meter guys, our relay people, and the budget there is about 1.3 million. This one's up a little bit. What's basically driving that is we have long lead times on meters and parts, and the transformer oil that we use has gone up. It's almost doubled. So we change out that oil. That's what keeps the transformers cool. And we like to change that out. And there's a lot of services that are required in that. And that's what's been going up quite a bit in that area. Last slide. Awesome. No. Oh, engineering. I'm 2 slides away. Okay. Engineering department, they're a little under $1 million, 2.6% below last year's. Their biggest challenge is a lot of our system is over 30 years old. So we're replacing a lot of failed underground overhead lines. There's a big project. I mentioned this at CIP where the DOT is coming to us and wants us to move our power line so they can expand I-35. So we're working on that. LED streetlight changeouts from a capital plan should be done this year in 22. We have other lights to do, but we're going to start doing that through O&M, operations and maintenance. So we don't have any more capital we're doing on that. We are looking at a feeder tie from Riverside over by Vet Med to South Duff, and we're going to kind of go by the airport. So that'll kind of make a nice ring and tie those 2 long lines together. Got several new subdivisions together, and we're up to 155. This gets back to Council Member Garton's question, but we have 155 customers that have installed solar on homes and businesses within Ames. If you look at that percentage of our customers with solar is higher than I know of any other municipal. I think last time I talked to Cedar Falls, they had 7. And I can't tell you where Mid-American's at on this, but I think on a percentage basis, we have one of the highest levels of retail solar within any of the utilities. With that said, okay, let's look at it from a revenue standpoint. So I covered all of the costs from a revenue standpoint. We're looking at the electric fund bringing in a little less than $66 million. It's down a little bit from 21-22. We're trying to keep it sounds counterintuitive, but we're actually trying to keep our rates down so that we're charging our customers just what it takes to cover it. We look at what our fund balance is, and we believe, or Dwayne believes, that our fund balance at the end of next year will be a little over 30 million. Council has set a fund balance target of at least keeping it at 10 million. Boy, I hate that green. So our unreserved fund balance is about $20 million. So the green, and it should be in bold and yellow, we are not recommending any rate increase for fiscal year 22-23. We're available for questions if you have them.
Don, is the age of our system in line with the age of other electrical systems in the state?
Typically, yes. Some of the cities that I would say probably have a newer system would be like Cedar Rapids, where when they had the derecho come through, there's a lot more new stuff in places like Cedar Rapids. But it's typically standard. The key is to maintain it and try to repair it before it breaks than after. So we are going out and that actually got improved a little bit in certain areas post derecho, where if you go into Old Town and stuff, you see actually newer poles up in those areas. But still, there's a lot of our 69,000 volt stuff that we have in our CIP where we're looking at replacing half a dozen poles every year to bring it back to a younger age.
Are you experiencing any of the delays that the other departments seem to be experiencing because of supply chain?
That's what I was mentioning primarily on meters, interesting enough. Meters and some of the spare parts. I don't know, Curtis, are you having any issues in the plant?
We have inventory that we're able to kind of adjust with that, but we are experiencing that. So far, we haven't had any major issues with it.
Don, as you're aware, we're going through the climate action plan. And one of the things the consultant mentioned was the need to be phasing out natural gas fired, furnaces and other appliances. You and I just had a quick conversation in the hall here a while back about what would the impact on the electric distribution system. That was kind of the question on the are you enlarging systems? But I'm sure it's going to be something that'll be in further detail, and you're going to be part of the conversation. But is it simple, far-reaching, expensive, astronomical, and also does that also affect the peak load demand? Would that also be an impact from a standpoint of adding more and more load on our existing city as it is right now?
So I can touch on that in several aspects. So I had a conversation with a gentleman who I believe he knows what he's talking about. For example, if Iowa State, for example, has to move from how they heat their buildings right to electric. So they go from coal making steam to natural gas making steam to electric heating the buildings. Their load will more than double from an electric standpoint. So their load on our system today is 30 megawatts. So I can see them going to 60 to 70 megawatts. That in and of itself would be a game changer. We're talking another substation. They would have to meet capacity needs. That's talking, by shutting down the unit, they would actually have to potentially build another unit. Or if that load becomes ours, we would have to build a 50, 60 megawatt unit to serve. From a capacity standpoint, we would have to meet that. When you start looking at homes and things like that, adding an electric vehicle charger could easily increase a homeowner's electric consumption by an additional 50%. It may even be higher depending upon how fast you want to charge your vehicle. One of the things that our engineering department is looking at is, all right, at what saturation? So we have a certain standard that we build different subdivisions for. And what is the impact of adding electric vehicles to that? Well, if we can handle 50%, that's great, but maybe 60%, we have to start pulling in new cable and things like that. So we're looking at what our current standards are and what they would have to be. adding on top of that, changing out furnaces to ground source heat pumps and things like that, that will add another increased load. Interestingly enough, though, more of the load is in the winter. From a summer standpoint, it actually reduces the demand because using heat pumps to cool is actually more energy efficient than a traditional air conditioner. So that will actually help us, and it valley fills in the winter time. So it's those pieces that we're looking at. All that said, if it causes new peak demands, we either have to buy additional capacity or build new generation. And that gets, boy, you almost got me on a soapbox here, but that gets into the idea of, okay, you can theoretically put in more solar and wind to bring in more green energy, but I also need to look at dispatchable generation for when this isn't here. So I'm almost building two pools of generation. I'm adding more green and renewable, but I've got to look at more peaking units that probably won't run very much, but our department does not want to put the city at a place like, and I'm not saying gloom and doom, but like Texas, where, okay, something happened where the wind and solar aren't there, so I need to turn on a diesel to keep the lights on, or I need to turn on a gas turbine. So you're almost, in a certain sort of way, building two types of generation, the reliable stuff and the green stuff. Or you start putting in batteries as a mix. So I can give you a lot of thoughts and ideas on it, but it's just something that we've got to study, probably through an integrated resource plan.
And that will be part of the climate action plan, is that right? Or that's
It's not a climate action plan,
probably-
again, it's the implementation plan.
Okay.
I'm telling you, the implementation will lead to other studies, perhaps, how we do it, what mix. Those are complex issues. They're going to last for many years. So you want to get it right. You want to have the best, most efficient way to handle it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much for your time.
Very good.
All right. Curtis, your daughter's going to be late for gymnastics.
Yeah.
Let's sit there.
It's clearing out, yep.
While they're getting set up, council will be on page 42 for fire safety, page 42 through page 53.
Steve?
Rich, how are you?
I'm good.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of all the members of the Ames Fire Department, thank you for allowing us to come out tonight and share with you our 2022-23 operating budget. I'm happy to have alongside me Deputy Fire Chief Tom Hackett and the city's building official, Sarah Van Meteren. Fire is broken down into two different programs, fire safety and building safety. Tonight, my goal isn't to tell you about all the numbers that you have in front of you. My goal is really to take you on a little journey and point out some of the amazing programs and people that we have and how the community's investment in our department is allowing us to better serve them and keep them safe. Obviously, if you have any questions, please stop me along the way and I'd be happy to answer them. You can see the numbers that will be, if you're following along for the pages. Just a quick slide showing how the fire department's broken down across both fire and inspections. We are currently in the recruitment process for a new deputy fire chief. Doug Allen, our deputy fire chief, retired back in January, and so we're in the process of filling his position. And then I'm happy to report that Scott McCambridge, who was our current plans examiner, was promoted last month as well to our assistant building official, so we are looking to fill the plans examiner position. We also have a few firefighter openings and anticipate a few more later on this year due to promotions and the addition of a proposed new firefighter for next fiscal year. I want to thank the city manager and city council for their proactive strategy of incrementally increasing our staffing levels as we prepare to open Station 4 in the near future. Overall, we're recommending a 3.2% increase in the fire safety budget. Also want to take this opportunity to recognize Iowa State University and their contribution to our budget. They are responsible for 25% of our operating budget as well as our debt services. And that will be a little over $2 million for next fiscal year. That partnership between our two organizations has resulted in many opportunities for both the university and the city of Ames. Great relationship there. Talk a little bit about fire administration and support. We're on pages 44 and 45, which highlights 3 different activities that I want to focus on tonight. The first is our COVID-19 response. We continue to meet with our community partners. This group started meeting back in March of 2020. So we've been together for a while. This represents all the different groups that are part of our community partners group. And this group is really instrumental in making sure we're on the same page for our community when it comes to working through the pandemic and making sure our community members have the proper resources, making sure that we're kind of following the leaders, the medical side of their guidance when it comes to what should we be doing at the city of Ames to keep our employees safe. The second area I want to highlight is our community and city engagement and outreach programs. So hopefully you've seen these boxes. In fact, if you just go around the corner outside, it's right next to the AED box. These are the Stop the Bleed kits that we installed last year around City Hall. We now have a Stop the Bleed training kit that was secured through a grant through the State Fire Marshal's Office Fireworks Safety Grant. So all the fireworks permits that vendors secure through the state of Iowa, there's a fee associated with those. The nice thing that the state does with that money is they turn that back into a pot and allow fire departments to apply for a grant to help offset some of the potential injuries or fires that could result from fireworks. So this was how we used some of that grant money, was to get this kit. And so this training kit allows us to go out and teach people how to stop a bleed using a tourniquet or gauze. The other prop we got through the grant was this is our bullet system. So this is a fire extinguisher training prop. We got this through the State Fire Marshal's Office. It's a trash can prop that you see on top, and the bottom one is a stovetop simulation prop to simulate a fire on the stovetop. The great thing about our community engagement programs for the community, for the neighborhood, for the other city departments is we come to you. You don't have to come to the fire station. We'll come out to your business. We'll bring our Bullets, our AED trainers, the CPR mannequins, the Stop the Bleed kits, and we will teach you how to use those things. We'll come to your business. We travel and we'll usually accommodate just about any schedule that people have. So it's a great program. We've been able to use some state money to help fund some of these programs to do some different things, and pretty excited about the outreach that we have within our community and across the city.
Rich, do you offer that for homeowners like us? I mean, could you do a training for fire extinguishers? That's a great idea. And I frankly have to confess, I don't even have a fire extinguisher at home. I know it's, and I'm on Lion Energy and no fire extinguisher. So I'm really big.
I still haven't been trained how to use this one under here.
Yeah,
We're all going to burn.
exactly.
I have to.
I just wondered, that might be, do you do that right now? If you don't, is that something that
we do on a request? So actually our fire prevention team just met a couple of us earlier this week, looking at another grant opportunity to secure a fire prevention trailer that's small enough that we can bring in the neighborhoods and actually load up the Stop the Bleed kits, AEDs, the Bullets. And when there's a block party or a neighborhood that wants to do a little more outreach, or we're going to reach out to them and try to bring this trailer into them and teach them how to be a resilient neighborhood. That's really our end goal, is getting our neighbors to know how to use fire extinguishers, to know how to do CPR, how to stop the bleed. Those are our first responders that we want to make sure they have the proper tools and training to do so.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Very good.
The third area I want to highlight tonight is the city's Incident Command Center development. A lot of work going on behind the scenes with other city departments and staff members to bolster our city's Incident Command Center capabilities to respond to large-scale emergencies. The photos that you see here are in the background from a training we held this fall alongside Story County Emergency Management. And this training really focused on teamwork and process improvement. So a lot of great things happening with that team, but it takes just about all of us in the city to make this the team work, the Incident Command Center. So speaking of, we continue to update and refine our city's emergency response plan. These photos from June's train derailment just remind me just how the work is never finished when it comes to emergency response planning. This was our June 24th train derailment around 1:30 p.m. It was involved 27 cars that derailed. The train itself was 3.2 miles long and carried hydrogen peroxide, which was at 60% hydrogen peroxide, the stuff you use at home. That's 3%, just for comparison. That tank did not rupture, but was split open. The inner vessel held. We did have a liquefied petroleum gas tank car that was broken at the valve area that we had to contain and work with Des Moines Hazmat and also the rail company's hazmat team to control that leak and then help offload that to semi trucks later on in the week. So don't worry, I got more train derailment photos. Got plenty of those. Over the next few months and coming year, we're going to continue to conduct our breakout training for our Incident Command Center team, and we're going to really focus in on those functional groups, making them understand the roles and responsibility and how they fit into the bigger picture of the Incident Command System itself. The white car that you see there, that's actually the hydrogen peroxide car. We're also beginning to transition our primary Incident Command Center from here in City Hall down in the police squad room out to the Ames water plant. You could imagine police and Incident Command Centers trying to function at the same time because the police department doesn't go away during emergency. In fact, they're heightened. So this will allow us to spread out a little bit more and have some resources pre-staged that don't interfere with PD. This is one of many other tank cars that were leaking. This product just happened to be corn syrup. And apparently there are different viscosities of corn syrup because we had some that were pouring out like it was water and others that were oozing. So it was kind of interesting as we learned a little bit more about what the train was carrying. Just kind of a big overview here. This was actually drone footage that was shot from a SIRIDE employee who was trained on how to use a city drone that came out to us, another total city perspective of other departments coming in when we're having an emergency that helps support our operations. But our Incident Command Center is preparing for a large-scale exercise in April of 2023. This state-funded and sponsored Incident Command Center exercise will be conducted alongside Story County Emergency Management, and really we'll test our capabilities to effectively manage a catastrophic disaster that's well outside of our scope. So something that will drain all of the city's resources, that will require us to go to the county, state, and even federal agencies to acquire those resources to handle this incident. So we're excited for that. A lot of prep work that goes into that, but that'll be a great opportunity to test our Incident Command Center and look to see how we can continue to get better each and every day.
Is Public Works out there? What is going on in this photo?
Yeah, so this is the train company. This is their derailment company that comes out and pulls the trains off the rails, cleans up the rails, and then the train company actually comes in and puts down, I think they're 20-foot sections of new line that's already set up and ready to go. They just drop it in place and put it all together. It's pretty amazing how quickly this process moved to get everything cleaned up. They work 24/7. Yeah, and those are big Caterpillar bulldozers and excavators and cranes. Just to put it in perspective, it was quite the operation.
And do you have drones yourself? Does the department, or
We
is
do
that
not,
something you've
and the reason
considered?
fire decided not to get a drone was that typically if there's an emergency that requires a drone, search and rescue or fire operations, we're going to be tied up in the operations. So that's where the total city perspective, other departments that can help support our emergency operations come into play.
Okay.
Which has been a great strategy and has really helped us focus on the emergency and somebody else to help acquire that data that we need to make decisions.
Sure. Thank you.
Rich, could you also just share with council for a second just about the partnership we have with Iowa State and Story County Emergency Management? We are really blessed to have an amazing Story County Emergency Management director and assistant director, and there's quarterly meetings I'm going to, and there's other meetings we're participating in. But I know, Rich, you go to those also at time to time, and
yeah,
talk about that a little bit in terms of that partnership and how just a little bit how that works. And Iowa State's always at the meetings too, and they're just a key partner.
Yeah, absolutely. So anytime there's a disaster, we know that our local resources are limited. The county has an emergency operations center that our Incident Command Center ties into to request any type of resource that comes from the state. So like when we had the derecho, we ran out of generators pretty quick. And so working through the Story County Emergency Management, we were able to make requests up to Homeland Security to get generators here to help keep our wells and our water flowing in our community. And that's just how the process works during an emergency. We can't go to the state to request that. You have to go through the county because there's other emergencies going on in the county as well at that time. So a great relationship. We work very well with Keith and Melissa. They are the subject matter experts for the EMA side of it. And so we utilize them heavily, as well as Iowa State and their EH&S, Environmental Health and Safety. We work very closely with them on hazmat. In fact, we're partners with equipment on some of our hazmat identification equipment. We share that resource with Iowa State because it's so expensive. And if we're on campus, they're going to be using the equipment that we're using. So we've adopted a model that allows us to share resources, training, expertise to better serve Iowa State University as well as the entire Ames community. Great relation. It's all about relationships, and you don't have to have all the equipment. You just got to know who has it and how you can get it.
I toyed with the idea of having Keith come over and just do a short presentation and let council understand what all goes in, but I'm not trying to overstate it, but we are so fortunate. He's an ex-military guy. He knows more acronyms than I ever want to learn in terms of, but he's all about strategy and procedures and processes and doing all the training. And we're really fortunate to have our fire department, is really involved with that. I can just sit back and say, Rich is taking care of that. Rich is taking, whereas we have a lot of times it's, the mayors are getting involved or, volunteer fire departments and stuff. So we're very, very fortunate to have a great system. And it showed when this happened.
Yeah. Thank you. Moving on to pages 46 through 49, we'll take a look at our suppression emergency action programs. That was the old clubhouse at the golf course, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
Our EMT transition is complete. So last month on January 1st, we went to a full-time EMT responding medical service agency. And what that allows us, we went from an EMR, emergency medical responder, to EMT. Now, the name might not mean a whole lot, but for our citizens and the level of service, it does. It means a whole lot. So we are the first responders. We are the first on scene. Our firefighters, Mary Greeley and their ambulance shows up second. Being an EMT level service provider allows us to do an EpiPen. It allows us to do breathing treatments and airways. It allows us to check for diabetic emergencies. It allows us to help with patient-assisted meds. So all those advanced skills that we can do now helps the patient outcome on the back end as we wait for an ambulance to come and to transport that patient. And sometimes some of the interventions we're able to provide on scene will negate the need for an ambulance. They still respond. They're a high level service with the paramedics, but we're able to provide that more advanced patient care by being EMTs now for our community. We're pretty excited about that.
Are all the firefighters certified for EMT?
About a little over 70% of our department is. And so that is a new requirement for all new hires. They will have to be an EMT, and our department slowly transitions. More people. In fact, we had a class set up for this spring, but unfortunately Mary Greeley had to cancel. The class, we're a little at their mercy on how quickly we can transition the department over to the EMT level. Our first set of battery-powered extrication equipment has been ordered and will be here in March when we get our new tower truck, our new ladder truck. And that's pretty exciting. So right now, the extrication equipment we have is tied to hydraulic hoses and a gas-powered portable generator, a unit, we call it. By going battery-powered, that allows us to be more versatile. It helps lower our carbon emissions. And we have an extended service life with this equipment. This changeover to battery-powered extrication equipment will also start our transition towards smaller pickup-style rescue units to respond to medical calls, and take our department one step closer towards purchasing a technical rescue vehicle to support our hazmat, confined space, and trench rescue operations. So currently, our tech rescue, the confined space, trench rescue, hazmat, that equipment's spread out over 3 different fire stations, multiple apparatus, and even trailers that we have. So by moving towards a tech rescue vehicle, we were able to put all of that equipment in one spot. So when we respond, we have everything we need for the initial response for a technical rescue. So we're heading that direction. Hopefully in the next couple of years, I'll be showing you photos of our new tech rescue vehicle and the increased capabilities we have for our community for some of those low frequency, high risk rescues that come up.
This is exciting. Do we lose anything in terms of power by going to the battery operated equipment?
We don't. We're actually gaining some power and service life of the equipment. It's incredible what they've been able to do with batteries and the ability to cut steel and to spread it out of the way, move it out of the way to get to patients.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Absolutely. Here's just a quick graph showing you the type of incidents we've responded to over the last 8 years, with last year being the last one there in 2021. You can see in 2020 the impact that COVID-19 had on our responses. Working in conjunction and off the guidance of Mary Greeley Medical Center, we changed our medical response protocols during the pandemic, the height of it, because we were running into exposure issues for our firefighters, as well as a PPE shortage with supply chain issues. So we changed that response protocol so we didn't respond to those low acuity calls where somebody just needed transported to the hospital or had a general weakness. Mary Greeley would always call us if they needed us, but we didn't respond initially, and you can see how that changed. But our 2021 numbers are back up to where we were pre-pandemic in 2019. And in fact, here's a little slide just breaking it down a little further. So last year we responded to 4,954 calls. Medical calls still make up a majority of our responses, a little over 52% there. But definitely keeping busy, and call volume continues to trend upward.
Rescue seems like a really high number.
Yeah, and that encompasses elevator rescues, vehicle rescues. So there's a lot more to than just, that's not really that tech rescue calls necessarily.
That's interesting.
And birds. Steve reminds me on occasion that we have rescued birds from trees. Cockatiels, sometimes they have their wings clipped. They're able to get up into a tree, but not get down. So we have had the ladder up multiple times rescuing somebody's precious bird, and we're happy to do it. And when they call again, we will be out there to get the bird down.
So that's the other.
Yeah, we've even had cats. I think last year I shared a photo of a cat riding down on Dan Schmidt's shoulder, one of our firefighters, to get down out of a tree. We respond to everybody and anybody whenever you have an emergency.
So is there only one cockatiel? Is that like a super user? All of those rescues?
I think it's been spread out. There's a few in town, yes. A major focus of our fire department is that fire ground effectiveness. In fact, our crews specifically train and are evaluated on how effective they are on the fire ground through quarterly assessment-based training called ABTs. There are 10 different ABT categories that crews are timed and evaluated on. We realize that we can't stop all fires from happening despite our best efforts and time and resources we pour into fire prevention. But what we can do is when we show up, we want to make sure that we're as effective as we can be in stopping that fire from spreading, stopping the loss. And that graph illustrates of all the structure fires we responded to, how effective we were when we did show up on scene. I'm excited to share some photos from our public safety training site. You saw a little bit of this last year as we were building it out. This year, I'm happy to report we have 2 of the training props complete and are in service. And I can't say enough about how grateful I am for the city manager and council, as well as our training officer and training team, to be able to make this a reality, to take shipping containers that serve little to no value other than storage, and to be able to turn that into a training site for a mere fraction of what it would cost to build it, has just opened up the door for so many more opportunities for our department. We're truly grateful. In fact, I want to share our vision of what we want the training site to build out to look like. The green ranch house prop, as well as the blue and orange skills prop, those are the ones that were both completed over the last year and in use. The yellow prop, the basement prop, that's the one we're working on right now. We're starting to look at shipping containers. Unfortunately, the cost for shipping containers, because so many are stuck out in the ocean, have been hard to get. So that's driven up the prices. So we're waiting just a little bit to secure those. But that will be the next prop that we hope to start construction on this spring. And just for reference, that prop will cost us about $35,000 to build. If you were to buy that prop from a manufacturer that also uses shipping containers, you'd be over $200,000.
Oh my gosh.
So this has been the way to go. We're just really thankful for the opportunity that you guys have provided us to be able to build a training site that we can use in conjunction along with Ames PD.
Who builds it?
What's that?
Who builds it?
We do.
So, like cutting open holes in the shipping containers and things like that.
Yeah, we work with Public Works, and we work with some of the towing companies to come out and set the shipping containers on top of each other. Our training team will go out, and inside we actually build stairs. We build hallways, bedrooms. We frame up windows to make it look like a realistic house and actually have furniture inside of some of them.
Wow, that's neat.
Yeah, this is located right where the train derailment was at Carnegie and Pullman. It's the city's warehouse area where they stockpile some of their different materials.
Cool.
Did you get some leftover railroad cars left over there too? To
Well, yeah, we
train
had the
those?
wrong railroad cars that derailed. We needed some of the shipping containers ones because they were more than willing to leave them there. Just the wrong cars.
Looks kind of like an Old West mining town or something. It needs a name that ends in Gulch. Pullman Gulch.
So we're going to continue to grow it, and I hope to have more pictures. It will take time as the budget allows. We will grow, and if the budget doesn't, then that's a nice thing. We will grow at the rate that the budget allows us to for our community. So now I actually want to take you on site, or at least virtually, to our public safety training site and provide your firsthand view of what our firefighters get to experience. So here you're seeing our skills building used for a training exercise. This one is this scenario specifically is a live fire inside with a report of people trapped inside. Once the firefighters make entry into the building, this is their view. This is what zero visibility looks like. High heat, anywhere from 800 to 2,000 degrees. So hot that it makes you drop to the floor because your shoulders start to burn. Now imagine the amount of time it would take to search a building that you're unfamiliar with, a home in zero visibility on your hands and knees crawling around through the smoke and heat. It's going to take some time, but we don't have time, right? We're behind the 8 ball. When somebody calls us, that's because they see fire. So we're always battling time. And so every second counts, and every second that ticks by is a missed opportunity for us to successfully make a rescue. So we have to work harder, we have to work faster, and we have to work smarter. One of the ways is by using a thermal imaging camera that you see here.
Wow.
This allows us to quickly search residents so we can get in, find out if anybody's there, and get out and deal with the fire. Quite the difference.
Did that have to be used during the fire at Ross Hall when there was so much smoke?
It did, yes. Yep, it's on all of our frontline engines and trucks. It's the first piece of equipment that one of the firefighters throws around their neck to have when they go into a fire so they can see where they're going. The other great thing about our training site is the ability to burn without creating that zero visibility environment that we have with smoke. So we remove our smoke barrels, and firefighters are provided the opportunity to study fire growth in a controlled setting. They learn how to read flow paths. They learn how to read thermal layering. They also have a chance to see the warning signs of fire so they know when to get out, because there are times our gear is limited. 2,000 degrees, our gear will be destroyed. So that's why we have to stay low and crawl, but they can go in there and they can actually see when those emergency signs are so they can learn to get out instead of reading that in a book or seeing a video. They get to experience firsthand through that training site. Talk a little bit about our community outreach. So we have seen the impacts of COVID on our ability to reach out to our community and bring them into the fire station. It hasn't been normal since the pandemic started, but our crews are finding new ways to reach out to the public. Sometimes that's an ISU campus visit on Universal Oneness Day with the Hindu Yuva, a multicultural student organization on campus. Sometimes it's also a visit to a lemonade stand. We have seen numbers dropped off from the schools that want us to come in and do in-person fire prevention, education, and not wanting to come to the fire stations right now with the pandemic going on. We are hopeful that that will change here in the near future. Another great way is our part to highlight our focus with Iowa State University and how we're treating fire prevention and reaching others with safety education is through an ISU honors class that we were lucky enough to be a part of to do the hands-on portion of teaching the class. Here we're teaching them how to do some victim carries. We also taught them how to crib if there is a collapse and someone's trapped underneath that. We taught them how to crib around the patient so you could pull them out. And this was all part of a mass casualty exercise that this honors class was participating in as their semester final grade. So we were able to be a part of that, which was pretty exciting. Talk a little bit about building safety. We're going to be on pages 52 and 53. We're looking at an overall increase of about 6.8%. You'll see in the highlights that the increase is a result of health insurance change as well as the planned pay step increases. That being said, we are proposing no building fee permit increases. Everyone asks, how are buildings doing? How's construction in Ames? This graph highlights a little bit of where we were and where we think we might be going. We did experience larger than expected increase in number of residential permits that were being pulled last year. And these are permits for installing water heaters, to doing electrical work, to brand new single family dwellings. We think partly the increase was contributed to more people being home during the pandemic that were able to pull permits, as well as availability of some stimulus money for those home projects. Commercial permits that you can see there, the blue line, they were down a little bit, but just to help keep it in perspective, it was only off about 11% from the 6-year average, and it's something that we're going to keep an eye on. Overall, permits were up, though, for 2021. Just want to talk a little bit about the importance of building codes. Our inspectors continue the behind-the-scenes work that makes sure buildings are built safely and remain safe while they're in operation. We get to experience their work every day. We just probably don't realize it. Take, for example, the structure fire in the background. This home fire occurred up north this last year, and it lies just outside of our 85% within 5-minute response goal that we have. That being said, everyone was able to safely evacuate the house, despite the garage being a total loss, and the house was still standing thanks to the enforcement of building codes that you and previous councils have adopted that require that fire separation between the garage and the house. That's what made a difference on this fire. Here's another example of how our building codes are at work. What could have been a catastrophic fire left nothing more than soot stains on this multi-story, multi-family apartment complex. That was rubber mulch that they had outside that people had discarded multiple cigarettes on, and it caught fire, and you can see the smoke plume that it created.
Wow.
We were obviously pretty excited going en route and happy to see that it was nothing more than mulch that was burning and not the individual property itself.
When was that?
That was this fall.
Wow, I completely missed that. How did I miss? That's Campus Town, isn't
Yes,
it?
that was a big one. That was a talker for at least a few hours.
Completely
Social
missed
media
it.
goes. Here's another example of why we do periodic building inspections. This was a hotel that had padlocked one of their exit doors and made it no longer operable.
Oh my goodness.
We also run into other issues during our visits. Our goal is always education over enforcement. We want our customers to understand the why so that they continue to follow the code on their own after we leave from an inspection. But sometimes it takes time, and sometimes it takes agencies getting involved outside. So other outside agencies helping us out. So we worked with PD and their mental health coordinator, Julie Saxton, quite a bit to help make sure that our customers have the right help that they need. Moving on to rental. For rental housing, we are proposing a small 3% rental fee increase for the next fiscal year. A 3% rental fee increase, just to put it in perspective, is about 73 cents per unit for an apartment complex of 20 units or larger. And for a single family dwelling, we're talking about $1.46 for actual dollar amounts for the 3% increase. The last time we adjusted the fee schedule was in July of 2017, just for your reference. The other question we get quite often is how many rental units do we have and how many apartments can we continue to build in our community? So here's a 10-year chart kind of illustrating where we're at and where we're going. From 2019 to 20, we did see a little bit of a lull, but they've picked back up, and we plan on that number continuing to rise into this next fiscal year. That being said, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Just curious if Sarah knew off the top of her head, how many new single-family home permits did we issue last year? Just brand new homes that were built. Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't.
Okay.
Yes, but probably not helpful. Single-family homes is staying pretty steady with the new developments going in, so that's really helped us last year with the declining commercial. I haven't seen any changes in number of homes over the last few years, so I would say a couple hundred a year.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions for?
I was just going to make a comment. based on our seeing how you all are doing the firefighting. Of course, we had a water report about the PFASs, and that often occurs because of the materials that are used in firefighting, but that those are materials you all do not use in your scenarios or when you are fighting fires.
Correct. And
That's
it's hard working with the manufacturers to make sure that they're not putting that type of chemical in with some of the firefighting foams that we have. So we have to do a lot of research and communications with the manufacturers to make sure what we're buying doesn't have that in there.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have right now, we're told has no PFAS in it. I think we had maybe a 5-gallon drum of it probably 6 months ago that we were able to get rid of with the vendor. So
Okay, great.
we want to do
Thanks
our part to make sure we have clean water. Absolutely.
Thanks for doing that. Mhm.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks so
Appreciate
much for
you
your
coming.
time. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, good presentation. I want to get one of those thermal cameras. Are those available to the public?
You can buy one. They're about $5,000.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's prohibitive, yeah.
Can I borrow it when you get it?
All right, I'll take one more. Thank you. Thank you.
And it looks like Jeff's going to start on page 32.
Yeah. Wait for Gloria.
Should be.
Good. Thank you.
Good. Thanks.
This was a cute story.
Picture looks
I
a
mean,
little familiar.
the end-
I think it was
the
in the
ending.
last presentation too.
Nothing.
I think
Exactly.
that's theft.
It's been amazing how solid our department chairs are and how forward-thinking they are. Every time we go through this, just really great.
All right. Good evening. Thanks for having us. I wanted to introduce a few people from my team first. Jason Tuttle, who is our patrol commander. Dan Walter, who is our newly appointed investigations commander. Ron Edwards, animal control supervisor. Aaron DeLashman couldn't be here tonight because he is nursing an injury. Otherwise, he'd be here as well. Aaron takes care of our sports services, which includes the budget and some complicated projects. So I'm going to start with a video that does a lot better than I could at explaining this whole situation. So over here.
The community of Ames is all coming together here at a lemonade stand, and it all started on an ordinary summer day.
Hi, would you like some lemonade?
9-year-old twins Caitlin and Elias were just having a lemonade stand Monday, but things quickly turned sour.
We were just selling lemonade, and the car drove up, and the girl hopped out. I asked if she would like lemonade. She said yeah. Then she grabbed the chip jar, went to the passenger seat of the car, and the car drove away.
When the family called the police, they say the response was sweeter than they could have imagined.
I started messaging, some people that I work with, asking them to maybe get together and visit the lemonade stand so that we could make a difference in Caitlin and Elias's day.
The twins reopened their stand and decided that when life gives you lemons, you just keep making lemonade. 4 different law enforcement agencies showed up to help them raise back the money that was stolen. But the support kept coming.
We heard what happened.
1 day later, and business is booming.
There's a lot of ice in that one.
The number of people that are showing up for these kids is just unbelievable.
It chokes me up. So to see these kids and as happy as they are right now, that's what it's about, taking care of our community.
And as for Caitlin and Elias, their mom says this life lesson makes it all worth it.
There was one bad apple, but they got to feel the goodness of so many more people, and one bad apple will not ruin it for us. We are pressing on.
The family says they've now raised over $750. They plan to donate it all to Shop with a Cop program and say they're just so excited to give back to the community that supported them.
It just keeps going.
Amanda Rooker, KCCI 8 News, Iowa's news leader.
So that $750 actually turned into $7,500 by the time it was all said and done.
Oh, my God.
They received donations from across the United States.
Oh.
I was getting calls and emails about how to donate. We were directing them towards the Smiths.
So cute.
We have used that money not only for Shop with a Cop, but we're also going to use it to support the Boys and Girls Club Gala that's this Saturday. So they will be our guests there. In addition, recently, the animal shelter also received about $8,000 in donations due to Betty White's birthday, where all across the country, animal shelters were raising money because of her support of animals. So it underscores just how much our community supports us and how we try to support them as well. So as you know, we've had a few personnel changes over the last year. There's nothing that continues to affect our budget more than these personnel changes and issues that we had. 2020 was kind of an unusual year with a few retirements and several staff leaving, including 9 police officer positions and the chief of police. So we're beginning to make some progress in that area. As you can see, we have appointed a new chief, happen to be sitting in front of you. That happened in July. We promoted a new sergeant position in August, a new commander, who's Dan Walter, in December, and a new lieutenant in January, Mike Arkovich. You probably know Mike. While this means that we lose some institutional knowledge when people leave the department and have been there for a while, it also provides opportunities to bring in new energy and ideas and some diversity. So in addition, you're all aware that the contract for the school resource officers was not renewed for the 2022-2023 school year. So what we did is we reduced our full-time employee staff of officers by 1, which offsets that revenue. And so we've taken 1 FTE away to make up for that loss. Once that all happens in July, we will be moving that officer position that was a school resource officer to our afternoon shift, who has the most calls for service. This is just a picture of a few of our newly sworn in officers. These 3 are all at the academy right now, getting their training. So we are making good progress when it comes to getting our officer ranks filled. Of the 9 openings we had, we've now filled 4. We have 5 more that are actually in the process. So assuming that they all make it through, we should be back up to full staff here in a couple of months is what our hope is. It's always a possibility that someone will change their mind or not make it through the background process, in which case we'd have to start over. But right now, things are looking pretty good to get those filled. We're really recruiting still some very talented people. The pool is smaller than it used to be, but we're still getting good officer candidates. And as you know, once they're hired, it doesn't stop there. They still need to attend a 16-week 16-week Iowa Law Enforcement Academy, and then our own 4-month-long field training process. So from the time we hire somebody until they're a solo officer on the street can take 8 months. And so just getting them hired is only part of that. It's the 8 months that we have to wait to get them out on the street that can be difficult sometimes.
Chief Huff, could you just take a second and talk about the efforts that we undergo to recruit police officers? Because I think people are interested in how we go about that. Could you just do a quick?
Sure. We work closely with our Human Resources Department, who they will send ads out to different places. We recruited heavily this year in both Illinois and Minnesota. We did get some candidates from those areas. Word of mouth is always a good way to recruit people that just know other people and try and get them to apply when we have the openings. But our HR department takes most of the responsibility for getting that information posted out as far as we can. We've really widened our net over the last few years, where we're publicizing this in hundreds of different communities, where before we didn't have to do that. You could stay pretty local and still get plenty of applicants. It just doesn't happen like that anymore. So we've really widened the net.
So there's an intentionality to try to have a diverse police force.
Yep.
Okay.
Our goal is to make our police department reflect the diversity of the community that we serve.
Great.
That's really what it's all about.
Thank you.
We're getting better at it, I think.
Chief, are you still getting candidates who have come through college as opposed to other smaller forces and?
Yeah, it's really a little bit of everything. Most of the people that we hire these days have a 4-year degree, but not all of them. And military service has seemed to be more candidates now that have military service than we used to see too. And I think that's just part of that, service-oriented kind of people that tend to gravitate towards policing. So a little bit of everything, and I think that's good. So we always look at our core mission as having 2 parts: relationship building in a dynamic university community, and problem-solving partnerships. And so I'm going to go to the next slide, and I've got another video to show you that's going to do a better job than I could explain, but you may know that we do a national night out each year. And this year we partnered with Hope in Christ to bring National Night Out back for 2021. We had to cancel it for 2020 and do some other things. But this partnership led to us being able to help supply 700 backpacks full of school supplies to kids in need. It was a great event. It was bigger than we've ever seen. The location was new. We had lots of partners that helped pull this whole thing together, along with our own community resource officer, Kurt Kruger, who did most of the planning. But this video really shows you what that event was all about. I think you were all in a workshop that night and weren't able to be there, unfortunately. So that's just a little bit of what that night looked like. It was a really nice night. I had a blast, met a lot of new people, and I think we did some good for the community, and we had a lot of partnerships to help us do that. So,
Do you have a date? Do you have a date set for this year's already, or do you know?
It's National Night Out, I think, is always the first Tuesday in August. Okay. I don't know the date off the top of my head, but it's always that first Tuesday. It's a national kind of thing. So unfortunately, we don't get to set the date. In addition to what you just saw, we attend a lot of other events throughout the year with our residents. This year, we got back to an in-person carving with cops. You can see Dan carving a pumpkin. Not a cop. That would be bad. That was done at the Boys and Girls Club, who we partner with a lot. We also had the Universal Openness Day with our Hindu ISU students. They came to the police department, and we met with them. We attended the Eid al-Adha picnic with our local Islamic Center residents, and I'm going to tell you, and Dan will agree, that was some of the best food I've had in a long time, and we ate way too much. It was kind of hard to get out of there. We also saw a return to in-person Shop with a Cop this year, which was great to be able to get back to doing that like we've done in the past. And then I threw the picture in there about football. Football is a huge event for us every year, especially with the Iowa game and ESPN game day when they come to town. So we have to work with all of our partners in that as well. And it's a huge event that can attract up to 100,000 people in and around that stadium. And that obviously presents challenges as well. We couldn't do that without all of those partnerships. So Storycom, I kind of thought last year was the last year we talked a whole lot about Storycom, but we're just now finishing the project. So we're very close now to a final sign off on the project. We've just got a couple of punch items left to be done with that. But our new public safety, public service radio system is up and running. We've been on it for quite some time. Everything is working pretty well. Just a couple of those little last minute things. There were some supply side issues that sort of put us behind. The radio equipment in our dispatch center was just installed in the last couple of weeks. That's what the picture in the middle is. That's what the radio system looks like to our dispatcher who's sitting in front of that console. And that's a picture of our radio and them erecting a tower there. So we are fully on the system now, and we're very pleased with it. So as you know, in July, we began the process of publishing our monthly activity reports. This was one of the 22 recommendations that came out of the Policing and Ames A Path Forward report. So we publish those on our website. We distribute them on social media, our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We print copies. We have those available. The library has them as a link on their civics page at the library, so you can pull it up. And we provide them printed copies there as well. So we think that we're getting that out there widely as we can. And we're currently working on the Ames Resident Police Advisory Committee, or RPAC for short, which will help us complete several other recommendations. So the RPAC has a responsibility to look through our policies and some other things. And so those recommendations will be handled once we get that group in place. In addition to the monthly activity reports, and that one side is what it looks like when you go to our website, you click and you can go to all the old reports. The other side is our new complaint or compliment form. So you can go to our website, you can click on either the complaint or the compliment, and you can send one of those directly. They come to me right now, and I'm happy to report we get many more compliments than we do complaints. So that's good news. But we did want to make it as easy as we could for people to find a way to do both of those things. A little bit about our training. In addition to annual required training our officers have to complete, we have ongoing commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is also a council goal. And we support that by high quality training and exploration of contemporary issues. And so one of the things that we did this year is we hired a consultant to come in and provide 12 hours of cultural awareness training with Inclusive Cultural University, or ICU was their name. So they came in for us and they did that training, and all of our staff, not just our officers, but all of our staff attended that training this year, in addition to all the other things that we're doing. This one's pretty exciting. Now, we talked about the hybrid patrol cars last year, and we talked about what we expected in savings from using these. And I'm happy to report it's much better than we thought. So we have all been incredibly surprised by how well these units are doing. So we talked about anticipated savings this year. We'll talk about what we're actually saving. Right now, we have 5 police hybrids being used in our fleet. We anticipate we'll have 4 more in the next 6 months, provided we can get them from Ford, because again, supply side issues. A lot of that's computer chips. So we will have about 90% of our patrol fleet will be hybrids in that 6-month, we're hoping, period. 50% of our other vehicles are now hybrids as well. So our detective vehicles, we've moved them over to hybrids, and they're doing well. The full transition will probably take around 2 years, depending on a lot of things, but we're trying to get there. The hybrids cost about $3,700 more per unit than your traditional unit. Last year, that difference was $7,000. Wow. So because everybody is ordering these, the supply is up and the cost has come down, which is a huge benefit to us. Even though we were already saving money, we're going to save a ton more. So you can see by this slide with the non-hybrids, the cost per mile is about 27 cents a mile. And the hybrids, it's 11 cents. We double the gas mileage. We have many fewer oil changes. You know, we have to change the oil in a regular vehicle 12 to 13 times a year, because that's how many miles we put on them in a month. The hybrids, it's about 3 or 4 times a year. Now, it's more expensive, but overall we save money. And then you can see the savings in our carbon footprint as well, which is huge. One thing that we didn't even think about, in a regular traditional police vehicle, we'll replace the brakes, the front brakes, at about 35,000 miles and the rear brakes around 60,000 miles. Well, what we found with the hybrid, we have one that has 70,000 miles on it and it still has 50% brakes on it. So we may never replace the brakes on that vehicle before we're ready to trade it out. And the cost to replace those brakes are $750 every time we do it. So that's another savings that we didn't even think about coming into this. So that's really helped us out. The regenerative brakes on the hybrids are saving us money as well. So you can see all the way through this vehicle, we get that extra $3,700 back within about 6 months, and then we're saving money. So we're very, very pleased with the hybrids. The officers like them as well, and so that's all good news.
How does that work? So because when you're braking it, it starts to charge energy,
Yeah.
then does that mean you come to a stop faster at a coast?
Not necessarily, but as you let off the accelerator, the brakes immediately start generating. And so they just last longer.
That's interesting.
That's about the best explanation I can give for it, but
Okay.
it's pretty amazing. And again, nothing that we didn't think about that, hey, we're not going to replace the brakes so often.
Yeah.
So that was a surprise and a pleasant one at that.
Yeah.
So our mental health advocate. So you know that volume continues to be high with our mental health calls. We're making use of our community partners, most notably the mobile crisis response team. We still use them on a regular basis. You'll notice in your books that we're expanding our mental health advocate position from a 3/4 time to a full-time position. And Julie Saxon, who's our mental health advocate, has really begun to expand her role over the last year to include teaching more classes on mental health first aid, and soon she'll be working on suicide prevention. Julie reported to me just a few days ago that last year in 2020, 10% of our mental health calls involved suicidal ideation or suicide attempts. Unfortunately, in 2021, it's up to 20%. So that's doubled in just 1 year. We're hoping that that's a trend that will reverse itself, but we don't really fully understand yet what it is, if it's all pandemic related or other things. So that's a disturbing trend. The picture you see is from one of the mental health first aid courses that Julie taught. And I can also say she trained every department head at the city of Ames in mental health first aid as well. So we all took that class together. Lately, she's been working on classes to provide officer resiliency training to each of our sworn officers. And we intend to take that past just our sworn staff to our professional staff as well as we go forward. I should have put the number on there. 2,300 was the number for this year, and it was around 2,000 last year. So the calls for service have really gone up significantly in the last year. So we continue to see those increases. We work with our community partners when it comes to mental health calls, so we're not the only game in town. We suspect that some of this has to do with COVID and the shutdowns and some of those things. And so we hope that we'll see some improvement as hopefully we come out of the pandemic, but we don't know yet. And I think it's important to understand that we've changed the way that we do business at the police department when it comes to mental health calls. We really triage each one of those calls that come in. A supervisor reviews them, and we decide what's the proper resource to use. In some cases, it is sending a police officer to the door. In other cases, the last thing they need is a police officer in full uniform driving up into their driveway. And so we will utilize other resources. Currently, there's a project underway called Third Way Program that may be able to take some of these calls as well. And that's a partnership with a couple of agencies in Ames. Don't know exactly where that will land right now, but we're hoping that that comes to fruition. So there's another resource available that's not a police officer. And we've already told this group that we're committed to using our communications center to dispatch them. So if we get a call that's more appropriate for their program, we've committed that we'll use our dispatch center to contact them. So I think that's important.
Chief, that's the challenge for them is funding. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think Chief and Julie and Deb and I were talking about this a few weeks ago, and I think that's about $250,000 a year, I think is what they need. And they're
big investment.
And it's 3 different people, I think, that go out. And it's a great program. But they're only at, last time I knew, it was $25,000 or $50,000.
Yeah, they've got a ways to go, and so we're not there yet. So we still utilize mobile crisis quite a bit, along with our officers and Julie from time to time.
Do you know what percentage of the calls are repeat calls for services? The same.
I do not. It's a good question. We do get a lot of repeat calls. Some clients can account for multiple calls.
Is that just regarding
20 or 30 a
mental
month in
health?
some
Mental
cases.
health only or all calls?
No, mental health calls.
Let me see what I can find.
Good question.
So a little bit about evidence. You'll find previous part-time evidence custodian. We're moving to a full-time evidence custodian in this budget. So the reason for that is we've seen an increase in the amount of evidence that we take in. and our staff time, obviously, to process that evidence has gone up as well. So this became even more pronounced when we added our body-worn cameras to the mix, because they add terabytes of information to the mix. Every serious case we investigate involves electronic media and body-worn cameras, phones, laptops, tablets, all of those things require some kind of processing. Then it needs to be categorized, needs to be shelved. Sometimes it needs to be sent to an attorney. Sometimes it needs to be returned to a party. And so all these things have increased the amount of time that it takes our evidence folks to do their job. So the additional staff time will allow us to keep up with this growing issue. And we have a finite amount of space. The middle picture there is actually our evidence vault, where we shelve our evidence. And so our evidence custodians have to take a lot of time to make sure that they are processing out the evidence that we no longer need or we can return, and that takes some time. So that is the reason for that increase.
Is all of that evidence stored on site, or do you have some other locations?
Most of it's on site. We do have 2 other locations we can store long-term. So something such as a homicide, we have to keep things forever. Other things, simple misdemeanors, maybe a year. And so a lot of what they do is they go through, and once that year is hit, they get clearance to then either destroy, return, whatever needs to be done, so we can make space for the next batch. Personal crimes. So we're always trying to look at these over the course of a few years to see what the trends look like. You can see that top one, the blue line, is assaults, and that's pretty flat. Our domestics are the second line down, and those have actually been trending down slightly over the past couple of years. We don't fully understand, I don't think, why that is, but it has. Our sexual assaults are up just a little bit. That's obviously very troubling. Iowa State, I think, is seeing the same thing. And so we'd like to stay on top of those. In addition, we've seen a little bit of an increase in our most serious crime, which is homicide. We generally average 1 homicide a year. This last year we had 4, which is pretty unusual. That could just be a blip. That could be a trend. We don't know yet. I'm hoping that we have 0 this year. Quality of life issues. So that first line is noise complaints, and you can see that's been steadily dropping for a long time. I probably said the same thing last year. As they convert houses into apartments, I think we'll continue to see those kind of noise complaints go down, because a lot of the apartment managers and owners kind of take care of their own noise complaints in some cases. And also in an apartment, you can't have 400 of your closest friends over, and so that helps with that as well. However, what I will caution is that little purple line that starts in 2018 is fireworks calls. You really do have to add that to noise, because we only separated those out starting in 2018 when they changed the law, so we could kind of trend that over time. So really, that would have been included in noise complaints. So it's actually a little higher than what it appears. Trespass calls trended down a little bit last year, but it had been on a pretty steady upward trajectory. And our bottom line is nuisance parties, and those have been flat and low for a long time. Again, we only have a couple of times a year where we have these large house parties. 801 Day would be an example of that.
How often are you actually able to do anything if people call about fireworks? It seems like that's kind of an ephemeral sort of infraction that'd be hard to catch.
It's really hard to catch. We show up after it's over most of the time. Sometimes we will catch somebody, but most of the time they're done by the time we get there. That's a tough one. And as you know, it's usually around just a few days in July.
Unless you're in Campus Town.
That's true. Could be any time.
I've held back from phoning in many times because I know you can't get there to stop it.
Yeah, it's difficult. We try, and we have to catch the actual person. And, usually when we show up, it's a group of people standing around and there's smoke. We wanted to hit a little bit on property crimes. Thefts have continued to trend down, but seem to be kind of flattening out. We've seen a decrease in financial crimes, but I want you to hold that thought for a second because it's a little misleading, and I'll get to that in a minute when we get to scams. Burglaries have also been trending down, which is good. The other caution I'd have on the thefts is a lot of our, it's not just locally, but across the nation, really, there's been a change in processes in shoplifting, and a lot of businesses just aren't even making an attempt to stop shoplifting or prosecute shoplifting. So we're getting fewer calls from some of those businesses just because their policy is not to do that anymore. We have recently met with a few retailers who I think are probably going to change that trend a little bit. One of our local retailers who happens to have 2 stores in Ames, they believe they've lost about $500,000 in merchandise in the last 18 months, and they're quite fed up with it. And so we may see a little bit of a change in thefts as our retailers maybe start enforcing again.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
So are any of the retailers using any kind of private security to assist with this effort?
So some of them have loss prevention folks that work for them. I don't think anybody currently is hiring like an outside company to come in, but there's a possibility that some are looking at that as well. It's becoming a trend across the nation to do that.
You look at the amount of losses they're experiencing and the cost to hire staff to assist with this. But this is a tricky thing because as if the business doesn't want to prosecute the shoplifting, it sort of puts the city in sort of an awkward spot. But conversely, from a city perspective, we don't want to encourage this. So I don't know how to finesse this, but this is not a good thing when we have situations where people go into a Walmart or Target and just walk out with a cart full of things. That's bad for their character and it's bad for the business and the community. So, how do we think about that? What do we do?
That is a tough one. It does come down to each individual business deciding what's right for them. And there is an acceptable rate of loss in each one of these businesses. I mean, they do have to look, if you're going to hire somebody full-time to do this job, it may actually cost more than your losses. And so they just do a cost-benefit analysis to try and figure it out. Now, we certainly, don't want to see them be the victim of these crimes, but it's their business. They have to make those decisions, and we'll kind of follow with what they want to do. It's difficult. I know we've seen across the country, the smash and grab things. We've had a lot of retailers contact us around that time about extra security. Some of our higher end electronics places were kind of concerned that could happen to them too. So we've been trying to work with them, but it really has to come from them on how they want to handle them.
Okay, thank you.
So I mentioned scams. Here's the line on scams. They're not going anywhere. They maybe have gotten worse. I can't believe there was actually a reduction in 2020, but there was a little bit. Now it's coming back up. And these are all kinds of scams, and we see them every single day at the police department. And I mean, literally every single day we get a call about some scam. Now, some people don't actually get taken, so that's good. Most of the scams that you're looking at are people that didn't fall for the scam. And that's why it's coded as a scam and not a theft. But definitely before, it would have been in that number in the previous slide. So you would have added it to that blue theft line, and it would have been a lot higher. So just because we in 2017 decided we need to track these scams so we have a better idea of the scale of it. And so that's why they're broken out like that.
I usually just tell myself it's not actually the mayor.
Yeah, that's right.
Every time.
You don't want gift cards?
Yeah, the bad thing is if you're a victim of one of these scams, it can take you years and a lot of frustration to fix, your credit history or whatever it is. And it's a terrible thing if you actually become the victim of it. And again, we have people every day.
Someone has commandeered my phone number and sends text to council from time to time saying, can you do an errand for me or something like that? And
Go get those gift cards right away.
so anyway,
I kind of miss the Nigerian prince. He hasn't been around for a while.
So anyway, but that's what they're referring to. So
the vehicle warranty ones.
Oh, yeah.
Just almost up.
Oh, yeah.
You need to call them back
Yes.
My vehicle hasn't been in warranty for a long time.
Unfortunately, last year I said we'll probably see an increase in accidents in 2021, and I unfortunately was right. So 2020, there was fewer people out on the roadways driving. As soon as they got back out on the roadways, we found a way to run into each other again. The only nice thing about a traffic accident is you get to meet somebody new, I guess. Damage is up 6.6 million in the damage that we did have this year. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's a terrible estimate because that's my officers making a guess at the scene of an accident. Once you get it to the body shop, they find all those little sensors and cameras that are also broken and need to be reprogrammed. So I almost think you could almost double that number by the time we actually get to a body shop, but the accidents are back up. So we'll see if they continue to trend up. It's not as high as we've been in the past, obviously. You would think with all the advancements in our vehicles that we would get better at this, but so far we're not.
You'd be curious to transpose on top of that, how many snow events we have and how many, the weather and how much that would affect the accidents as well too.
And I believe last year was a pretty mild winter on top of everything else. We didn't have a lot of snow events, so I think that helped bring that number way down too. But we definitely have snow again.
Have we had any driver assist accidents where, one of the automated vehicle systems has failed?
Not that I'm aware of. I'll look into that, but I don't think so.
I'm just curious.
You'll see more of them, obviously.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
let's hope not.
No, not the accidents, the vehicles.
The vehicles, okay.
Yes, see more of the vehicles. Communications. As you know, our communication center answers and dispatches calls for police, fire, EMS here in Ames. One thing that's pretty interesting is the National Fire Protection Association standards that state that 90% of 911 calls arriving at a public safety answering point, or what we call PSAP, which is what we have, shall be answered within 15 seconds, and 95% should be answered within 20 seconds. We're doing a little bit better than that. So 92.5% of our 911 calls are answered in 10 seconds or less, 98% in 15 seconds or less, and 99.2% in 20 seconds or less. So that's a pretty good rate of getting those calls answered quickly, which means shorter time to get services dispatched, whether it's fire, police, or EMS. And as you know, we do emergency medical dispatch in our communication center. This is what the cards look like that they use where they answer the questions. So I thought you might just like to see a little quick look at what that looks like. Last year, we handled 4,166 medical calls through our communication center and then dispatched police, fire, and EMS to those calls. And we're currently just a few points away from being an accredited center for excellence, which recognizes rigorous and measurable best practices in emergency medical dispatch. So we're going to keep striving to get to that standard. So we do get accredited. We're just a little bit away from it right now. So a lot of hard work on the part of our communication staff who work really hard when these medical calls come in to make sure that we're getting the proper resource to you as quick as we can. Everybody likes to talk about parking. So here's parking. I threw a little chart together for this year to just show the number of citations written. You can see in 2020, there was a pretty big drop in the citations that were written for obvious reasons. We wrote very few game day tickets, only 83 last year. Things are back up this year, so we wrote 28,000, just over 28,000 citations this year. 1,259 of those were game day tickets, which is actually less than we wrote in 2019. So I don't know if there were fewer cars illegally parked, if the game day fine increase is making a difference. I think it's a little too early to tell. I think we probably need one more year to sort of figure out where this is going to go, just because it's so new. In addition, we added some new parking software that was actually launched during the pandemic, but we've fully integrated everything now. So we've adjusted to this new system. So each ticket is time-stamped, GPS located for accuracy. So there's never a question about where that vehicle was parked. Tickets are uploaded to the cloud as soon as it's printed for customers to review, pay, or appeal. So right after they write that ticket, you can go in and pay that fine if you want to. This gives us a lot more tools and saves us a lot of time as well. So the program's also been integrated into our collections vendor to manage outstanding parking tickets, to try and collect on those ones that we have not collected on before.
One thing on the parking, it seems like we're doing a much better job on communicating with people about game day parking. So I see a lot more social media posts on that. I would like to think at least some of that is due to our staff communicating better with the public.
I hope so.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, with 2020, it made it really difficult for us to see what the effect was, but I think we'll know next year.
Yeah.
Next year is a non-Iowa State game as well, which makes a difference, but it'll give us a way to look at it, I think. So we've got a lot of new capabilities with the software that we have for citations. We can run a lot of different reports, which is good for us. It's a good provider. There's other features that are available. Those include online adjudication process, which we may use it. If we ever get into the business of booting or towing modules, that's available to us. There's an integrated permitting option in there, so electronic permitting is available. You can see in one of those pictures, that lower right for me at least, that's how we actually mark a vehicle now for 48-hour parking. You can see they mark the tire electronically with the ticket writer as opposed to chalking the tire and all that stuff that we used to do. So that just makes it easier, quicker for us to especially deal with vehicles that have been left parked after a snowstorm, which is a problem. It's hard to get the streets cleared when the cars are left there for a long time.
Does this allow the tracking of repeat infractions by the same license number?
It can, yes. There's a lot of capability there. So you could look at whether someone had been cited for the same offense a number of times. Our community safety officers do more than just parking, however. So we wanted to point out that they also assist animal control at times when they're shorthanded or just need extra assistance. They take care of our bike auctions when we do those. There's a picture up there of all the bikes, which we get a lot of them. They provide motorist assist at times when officers are busy. They do transport prisoners for us. It's important to note that there's general fund money that comes into that fund, so they're not being paid directly just out of the parking fund. So we do fund those activities through the general fund. But what it does is it helps us free up our officers to do more pressing issues and handle higher priority calls. So a lot of times our community safety officers will sit there waiting for a tow truck so an officer doesn't have to do that. Transporting prisoners is big. That takes an officer off the street for about an hour to make that trip back and forth to Nevada, and that's probably a low estimate. So being able to utilize our CSOs for that really helps. Our animal shelter. Shelter remains committed to complete transparency, and they post their data about their operation, whether it's flattering or not, on the website. And most of the time, it's really, really good work. As you can see from this slide, Ron and his staff have seen increases in intakes of most animals and also increases in good outcomes for the animals as well. You'll also notice a small increase in time for an animal control attendant in the budget. That's just a few hours to free up some time for them. And we're really committed to live release and returns to owners. That's one thing we strive for. And speaking of returns to owners, one of the outreach events that the animal shelter did this year and the animal control staff is we partnered with ISU College of Veterinary Medicine and the Shelter Medicine Club to do a microchip clinic this year. So we microchipped a bunch of animals, and what that does is this helps us return those animals to their owners and cuts down on the amount of time it takes our staff to figure out who the owner is. And so they can scan that chip, and that can quickly reunite a pet with their owner. And it's a good partnership, and we're going to continue that partnership as well. I think they have plans to do more of these coming up. So that was a good time as well. As you know, our community continues to support the shelter operation through a lot of donations. While it may come in a lot of forms, a lot of times it comes in pet food that's donated to the shelter. I generally do not fat shame cats, but that does say fat cats animal on it, so I'm going to point it out. These donations really help the shelter operations through at times. And at times they get so much they can't even use it all themselves. And so Ron will donate it to other shelters so that they can utilize it, because we certainly don't want it to go bad. So that's the good form of regifting that we do. And we get lots of it, pickup loads. The facility continues to present some challenges for us. We've made some repairs and continue to do so. When we make purchases for the shelter, we try to ensure that we acquire items that can be moved to a new shelter at some point, so they're not going to waste once we can get one constructed. We've done a study to design a new shelter. We're revisiting those plans now. Unfortunately, the construction costs are pretty high right now, as you know. It's probably not the best time to do it, so we will be looking at how we might be able to fund a shelter going forward. But that's definitely one of our goals at some point, is to bring back a better plan for how we can get a new shelter built down there. As you may remember from last year, we acquired a trailer to house the cats that we have, because there's a lot of those. And we updated our dog kennels as well. And all of that, the dog kennels especially, can be moved to a new shelter at some point when we get there. Thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate the time to present this to you. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. These are just a few other pictures from some of our outreach events this year.
I have one final question, Chief. The department's been doing work on measuring the data on racial stops and the degree to which that has a factor in stops. Do you have a sense of when that data will be publicly available?
February 10th.
February 10th.
After our workshop.
That's actually going to be, there's a joint meeting between student government, city council. I thought I had asked you to reserve that day, Thursday night, the 10th of February.
The public will be invited.
Yep.
The consultant who prepared the report on the analysis will be there, along with the two chiefs of police, one from the university, one from the city. Jeff will be there because they did data analysis from both law enforcement entities. So the consultant will explain the analysis, his procedures and determining, evaluating data and the conclusions. And it'll be open to the public at the auditorium. Practice, I think we have enough room there. We can spread people out for people who feel uncomfortable, where we are going to televise it and stream it too. So people, stream it so people will be able to watch it real time. And after the presentation is made, there'll be an opportunity for the council to ask questions, the consultant and the public too. And I see that as the beginning of the presentation. I'm sure in the future, both chiefs will go out and meet with any public groups who want to further discuss the study itself. I want to emphasize that study was brought upon by ourselves. It was a nice thing. Many cities sometimes who are engaged in this, it's been forced upon them through complaints. Majority of cities aren't even doing it, quite frankly. But to the credit of our police department, they stepped forward and they wanted to know how we're doing and how we can improve. So I think it's a major step forward for our community, and Iowa State followed suit on this too. So that's February 10th. And I forgot what time it starts.
6 to 8.
6 to 8?
Yep.
6 to 8 o'clock.
Yeah, there was a press release that went out.
So we'll do more. There'll be
emailed
more
out.
press release on it. It's a public, open to the public, and we'll make it accessible for everyone.
Any other questions? I might just comment, Council, we had several residents come and talk to us about 801 Day.
Oh, yeah.
And then also when we had our student government city council joint meeting, that was also brought up. And Chief Huff, Chief Newton, Dr. Winterstein, Steve, there's been 4 or 5 other people, some people from the student affairs. We have been in, and also contacted some landlords. So we are in very serious conversations. And there's a lot of research being done right now, going out to, I think it's University of Michigan.
Yeah, and I think there's Wisconsin as well, and Colorado.
What they're doing is they're looking for best practices. This is not an uncommon phenomenon, unfortunately, in the nation. And I don't want to over dramatize it, but like to quote the police chiefs, we do not want this to continue to get worse, because we don't want to transition into what happened a few years ago when Visha was brought to a close. And both chiefs have said and they said it at student government. That was, we're not going to, we just say, law enforcement our way out of this. And so it was right after the first year, Dr. Winterstein and I had 5 landlords come and we talked to them, just the 2 of us, trying to get some ideas. And that was a very insightful. So my guess is that probably within the next month or 2 we'll be coming back, but we're trying to get a strategy put in place either before spring break or before, it's April 1st of April was our target.
What is 801 Day in the fall?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's the day
the
right after
Saturday
March.
before classes begin.
Okay. And it's not it used to be that the Rush didn't allow alcohol, or the Greek system didn't allow alcohol
Right.
up until that point. But Is that still the case, or is that part of it's gone? And
No,
it's
that's
just
all
the-
gone now. It's just taken on a life of its own since then.
I see.
So that prohibition against alcohol ends at 8 a.m.
But
the
that's
Saturday
o-
before class.
That's over anyway.
Yep, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And this has moved well beyond, just the fraternities and sororities now. This
Yeah.
is not only university-wide, unfortunately. Probably 50% of the people that attend are from out of town. That's the part that's difficult.
I assume, given the timeline on that, you've already contacted the other communities, but if you need another community, East Lansing, Michigan State has been dealing with this a lot, and they're very active in the International Town and Gown Association, so they're really concerned about establishing those good relationships between the students and the rest of the community. And so they might have some suggestions for you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I can give you
Yeah.
the contact info.
That'd be great.
Bottom line is we're taking this very seriously. And no one's got a complete answer, but we're working hard, and there's been a lot of meetings that transpired between Iowa State and the city, just trying to work behind the scenes and try and get some ideas. But it's and actually all the landlords decry it also. I mean, it's destruction of property. It's a nuisance. But when you have 100, as Chief said, you have 150 of tenants, closest friends, attending, and you try and shut a party down, and the next one becomes 300, people. And so it's a challenge, but we're taking it seriously, and we hope that we have some. And it may take a few years. We have to try some things and then continue doing more things, but it's just very, very unfortunate that's become a cultural thing on college campuses, and it's unfortunately being promoted through social media and through some national social media individuals that champion that kind of activity. And so it's
The
something.
good thing about that whole thing is we have built relationships for years, not only with the university, but outside of that. So we already have those relationships built and those partnerships. And so I think that will certainly help us as we move forward to solve this problem, that we don't have to try and build those relationships now in kind of a crisis. They're already established. So I think that's really going to help us moving forward.
And just can't say enough positive things about Iowa State. I mean, all their departments are on board, and so anyway, that's just a quick update, but kudos to Chief and actually both chiefs. They've both been phenomenal in terms of really trying to sound the clarion call, but also looking for ways to try and address it and address some of the complaints that we got from some of our residents. All right, any other questions for?
Do we still do the Citizens Police Academy?
Yes. We try and run 2 a year, one in the fall, one in the spring. Our spring one would have started already, but we're going to put that off till March, April, see how things are looking then. But our intent is to still do it. We did one in the fall before things kind of went south again. So,
Sure.
Yep, we still do that.
Officer Snyder and I graduated from the same Citizens Police Academy class. It was a special bond.
We have many graduates. I think we're on, 36 or 37, class 36 or 37 now, I think. So,
A long time ago.
Fun
All
time.
right. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you.
all coming.
Appreciate the time.
Any closing comments, Steve, before we?
No, again, I hope we're presenting the information at the level you want. We're trying to emphasize services to the public. And again, if you have any questions about services or the financial impact of the activities, I hope you'll interrupt us and ask questions too.
Any questions for Steve? All right. With that, there are no dispositions of communications to council. I did send out an email last night just with an update. I think y'all probably got that regarding our conversation last night. With that, we'll go to council comments. Gloria, anything tonight?
Nothing tonight.
Tim?
Just wanted to comment, I did note that the police have a 90% approval rating. I wonder if there are many communities our size around the country that have that. So commendation to your team.
Thank you.
Nita? Amber?
No, nothing.
Nothing for me. Thanks.
My only comment tonight is I think that video that Chief Higgins showed of someone walking into a smoke-filled container
Yeah.
sent shivers and chills down my spine just thinking, oh my gosh. And then we showed that camera. It's like, oh my gosh, what an amazing technology. So
Yeah.
very fortunate that people are dedicated to provide exceptional service. So anyway, with that, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. See you tomorrow night.